of our great party was supposed to commence on Saturday, December 12, 2020. On the account of several factors, however, including the fast approaching Christmas and end of the year celebrations, as well as the interests of our Christian members and the objectives of ensuring maximum participation, the caretaker committee has decided to shift the date of the exercise to the second week of January 2021.
Well, the committee has been tasked by the party's neck to deliver its national convention and tidy up its reconciliatory moves across the party chapter across the 36 states of the Federation. And now in Imo State, commendations are in order as the Federal Roads Emergency Maintenance Agency reconstructed a Coronel Bridge that connects Amaruru community in Osu local government area of Imo State and Ezinifite community in Niwi South local government area of Anambra State.
You will agree with me that this is not a federal government road. But we know that the people that belongs to the Federation resides mostly in the rural areas, in a local government. So I know how you feel. I know with passion how projects, when you deliver projects that have bearing on the life of the rural people, they are always very happy.
This bridge is important for many reasons. It allows our communities in Imo State to interact with their brothers in Anambra State. It allows trade between Imo State and Anambra State.
It is a welcome address. It helps us because it is a bridge of boundary between Ezinifite, Anambra State and Imo State. So when the bridge was damaged, it was too bad for us to travel. So, but we thank God, to the glory of God, that the bridge was only rehabilitated to this extent.
We appreciate, and the road is linking between Anambra and the Imo State. We so highly appreciate. And we thank God Almighty at the same time to the man who initiator of this work. God will bless him.
Well, quite commendable, as such development will promote local trade. Now, in education sector, the Lagos State government has been called upon to do the needful in developing the sector. Plus TV Africa correspondent Adabanke Oduniyi has more on this.
The event, which had been delayed by the COVID-19 pandemic, is to celebrate the achievement of the academic institution 40 years after creation.
We are celebrating our 40th Founders Day anniversary celebration. See some of our colleagues that we've not seen for years. We wanted to bring it to the compound so that all students could see areas of opportunities where we can be able to help the school. The government cannot do it all. 2
projects taken up by the old students to help make learning better for the students were commissioned during the celebration.
The 2 classrooms were completely dilapidated. The desks were broken, the chairs, everything was in disarray. But we decided, okay, we're going to take up the project and repair, in fact, buy new desks and refurbish the entire classroom, the 2 classrooms. And so here is a senior secondary school where we decided to take up the ICT project. We decided, okay, we'll do a complete overhaul of this ICT room. And so we changed about 6 to 10 computers that we found that were faulty for them, and then we repaired the server, and we put the computer room in a condition where it can be put to maximum use.
Water and electricity were highlighted as the main issues currently plaguing the academic community.
Main challenge that we have is that of water. The water supply we have now was also constructed by the old students, which is a borehole. However, the water is a colored water. I think it's iron. It has to do with iron.
The school has a challenge with electricity, so we expect the government to help us look into those as well and build more classrooms.
While applauding the Lagos State government for its ongoing project, old students of the school urged them to do more.
The governor of Lagos State, His Excellency, Babajide Sanwo-Olu has listened to our yearnings, and he has started the project already in the school. The project, from what we learned, would have been completed this December, but so much is ongoing there. Even right now, I've been there and I've seen the workers working assiduously to give that place a befitting look. It behoves on the government to take advantage of it, build nice structures here to project the image of Lagos State government as well.
The old students have pledged to play their part to help the institution produce students ready for the current reality of the outside world. Reporting for Plus TV Africa, Adebanke Oduni.
With over 600 new cases being recorded daily recently in Nigeria, the Health Ministry is not only worried but has planned to take drastic measures to stop the spread. Plus TV Africa looks into the realities of a possible wave of rising infections, its implications, and what must be done.
It was on February 28, 2020, that the first case of COVID-19 was detected and treated in Nigeria, a case that sent shivers across the nation. The government soon swung into action, shutting down markets, schools, churches, national and international flights, and generally imposing a lockdown that lasted for weeks. Wearing a nose mask and using hand sanitizers became a necessary ritual. In May, the lockdown was gradually eased, but 7 months down the line, many seem to have returned to their normal lives with relaxed use of face masks, hand sanitizers. Cautions seem to be thrown to the wind despite government enlightenment. It's almost as though there is no COVID-19 in the country. Just this Saturday, December 12th, the governor of Lagos State, Babajide Sanwo-Olu, tested positive for COVID-19. Now, this is only 2 weeks after the Health Minister of State warned of the fear of massive spread of the virus following low COVID-19 safety precautions. The ministry further announced plans to reopen isolation centers. From one case in February, Nigeria has recorded over 72,000 confirmed cases and over 1,000 deaths. Dr. Uche Anyawagu speaks on the possibilities of fresh spread and increased deaths.
Nigeria, as it is, I'm not even sure we've been able to test up to 500,000 people over the past 10 months, and that's a shame. But it's not still late for us to declare a state of emergency in our healthcare so that we can get the necessary equipment, the necessary manpower, stopping our doctors living in droves, and developing our infrastructure.
When you enter a restaurant, they ask you to wear your face mask, but when you go inside the restaurant, nobody's wearing their face masks. So these are the things. COVID-19 is still very much existing. People are traveling in and out, and it is only bound to happen.
These medical professionals agree that going back to the strict observance of COVID-19 safety protocols may be a way out to avoid the economic hazards of another lockdown, which might be necessary to stop the spread.
COVID-19 is real. It's not a fictitious situation that people made up just to pump money anywhere. No. COVID-19 is taking lives. As a public health physician, I know colleagues that I have lost to COVID-19.
I think that coronavirus should have made us to be a bit more serious about the healthcare facilities and infrastructure we have in Nigeria. Sadly, I'm not sure that that lesson has been learned. So in terms of testing, Nigeria has performed very poorly. If they were to be my students, I would score them maybe 5 over 100.
However, there is a glimmer of hope that vaccines will arrive the country early next year. Despite this, health experts advise that the protocols must not be ignored.
And on this note, we call it a wrap on this edition of Plus Reports. But before we go, let's remind you to follow us on Plus TV Africa on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. And do subscribe to our YouTube channel at Plus TV Africa. I'm Jacinta Obiukwu. Thanks for watching.
What was assumed to be a regular day for the people in Itafaji, Lagos State, Nigeria, was met with the lasting trauma of a 4-story building collapse housing an elementary school. This was one of the 43 building collapse incidents in Nigeria in 2019. The building caved in seconds with no time to escape. Some of the victims share their encounter as they live with the indelible scar of the collapse.
I tell from our teachers, they own that school. I tell for them, until this school have want to collapse, then I beat me. I tell for my teacher too. This school have want to collapse, they too beat me. When I'm writing, that school now collapse.
So when the school started bending, so our head said that some people could come and plaster it. So after they plastered, it was not still straight, it was still bending. So I was not afraid to go to the school.
Àwọn ọmọ tọ̀dọ̀ tèmi dẹ̀ ni twins ni wọ́n, Táyé àti Kọ́hìndé ni. So inú àwọn méjèèjì, Táyé ni kíní ẹ̀ ṣe léṣe jù ló bá lórí. So ó gbabẹ̀ kú síbẹ̀. But Kọ́hìndé ó sì wà alive fún tiẹ̀.
Over the last 10 years, the incidence of building collapse in Nigeria has become so alarming and does not show any sign of abating. In Lagos State alone, which is Nigeria's largest city, there were 17 building collapses in 2019, recording the highest number of collapses of the 36 states, followed by Anambra State. Consequences of these building collapses cannot be overemphasized, as they include loss of physical properties, destruction of movable properties, injury and loss of life. In a whole, it has economic, financial, psychological, and sociological implications, as each collapse carries along with it tremendous effects that cannot be easily forgotten by any of its victims.
I was not breathing, I was only breathing sand. I was under the umbrella for 4 hours.
I spoke with experts and disaster experts who shared reasons for the recurrent collapse.
Our people are engaging in sharp practices. Sharp practices deals with the type of material that they are using to build their building. Look at the engineers that they are using. You will discover that some of the builders that they are using, they are not professionals. You get what I'm saying? They are not professionals. Secondly, if you look at the materials that they are using, they are substandard. The blocks are substandard. The integrity are substandard. Now, when we now look at where do they obtain government permits, no. 95% of them are not taking government permits.
The other thing that could have also been responsible for building collapse is deviating from what has been designed. For example, you could have designed a building for a story building, and getting to site, you said you want to take it on the additional floor. Most likely, you're already signing up for a collapse.
Items which are very important and salient in the construction may be omitted, and this would cause distresses in the building.
According to Ayinuola and Olalusi, building failure in Nigeria is attributed to 50% design fault, 40% construction fault, and 10% product failure. Of the many collapse incidents, occupied buildings are more affected than those under construction or newly completed. This begs the question, who are the builders and how skilled are they? Who shares the responsibility of building collapses?
I see one block, she have room there. And I say that this school, we are going to collapse. And I go up and I tell for our teacher.
Despite the signs of a soon-to-collapse building, experts say building owners and engineers sometimes do not carry out appropriate tests on their buildings.
If you don't maintain your building, if you don't use it properly, if you don't do integrity tests of your building, it will definitely collapse.
Engineering being a lifelong experience, we're supposed to move along with the innovations and the technological changes.
While individuals have a part to play in ensuring safety standards are adhered to, Governmental agencies have also been put in place to ensure building codes are implemented.
We've put a lot of regulations in place to check and to prevent building collapse. Now, what are the things we put in place? We have a viable legal state physical planning in place. We have building controlling agency in place. We have the material testing agency in place. We have engineers in each of our local government. Apart from that, the building controlling agency has decentralized their activities in each of our local government, in each of our senatorial districts.
Regulatory body is also doing so much, having to curb so many lapses, and so many unprofessionals are also doing these jobs.
As the government officials grapple to fight against the incessant building collapses, as well as the engagement of building consultants and the adherence to building codes. According to IISTE, it's important that specific tests such as electrical services efficiency test, mechanical services efficiency test, cracks and dilapidation assessment, waterworks efficiency test and quality assessment are all carried out.
Primarily, and this is on a general note, we find that cracks appear on buildings. And for every tenant or every owner of a building, then you find cracks in your buildings, be it on the floor decks, on the side, the walls, diagonal cracks, any type of cracks that you see. It should be a good advice to give that this be checked out by qualified structural engineers. Secondly, you find for old buildings which have gone past, they begin with cracks, but the building begin to have spalling. Spalls is the chunks of concrete begins to fall from the deck, which is the floor slab. And people try to patch them up. People just try to do some palliatives, but these are actually much more than that. The causes are much more than that, and these are just surface protection.
The scars of collapse still dig deep in the psyche of its lucky survivors, who say they would never step foot in the vicinity where his elementary school was once founded.
I feel sad when I'm passing that place. I don't want to enter that place again.
I said that I will never enter the building again. I'm so traumatized.
The reality remains that major victims are those with no power or influence and cannot afford properly structured houses, hence are made to pay the heaviest price, most times with their lives. With the high number of building collapses and the level of reoccurrence in Nigeria, would this serve as a good enough prompt for all the relevant authorities to swing into action and bring the perpetrators to book? For Plus TV Africa, Irene Ubani.
Hello and thank you for joining us. I am Felicity Eziwike. We'll begin the news at this hour with the story that bandits have attacked the convoy of the Emir of Kaura. Namoda, His Royal Highness Sanusi Mohammed Asha, killing 3 policemen and 5 others. The Zamfara State Commissioner of Police, Usman Nagogo, confirmed the incident and that it happened in Funtua, Katsina State, but declined to give further details. Plus TV Africa will keep an eye on the development and bring you updates. Hundreds of boys abducted last Friday from Government Science Secondary School, Kankara, and released on Thursday night have arrived Katsina State. The students were escorted into the state capital by security operatives. Some of the schoolboys, who were still clothed in their school uniforms, were led to an expansive hall in a government house where they were received by Governor Aminu Masari. Masari had on Thursday night confirmed the release of 344 abducted boys and that they would be transported to Kankara today. The schoolboys are to receive proper medical attention before being reunited with their families. Earlier, the Kaduna State Governor Aminu Masari said more than 300 of the schoolboys who were kidnapped have been handed over to government security agents. The governor, who spoke in a televised interview, explained that a total of 344 boys held in the forest in neighboring Zamfara State were freed. Good cheers there. President Muhammadu Buhari has welcomed the release of the kidnapped students of Government Science Secondary School, Kankara, describing their safe return as a big relief to their families, the entire country, and the international community.
And some of the things we may not say, I don't want to compromise the security and the efforts being put by the law enforcement agencies. But really, we are acutely aware of our responsibilities. Our responsibility is to secure the country. So we have a lot of work to do. I spoke with the governor. I congratulated him, and I congratulated the army that organized the, the operation, encirclement of the people, of the abductors, and getting the children. The military is well trained. I think they are sufficiently motivated. The governor, I'm very impressed with the governor. He has been, up and doing since it happened, and I congratulated him that the children have been successfully recovered.
Away from the rescue of the schoolboys, we go now to politics. The People's Democratic Party, PDP, House of Representatives caucus has called on Nigerians to support its call to impeach President Muhammadu Buhari. The representatives spoke to newsmen in Abuja, saying the call is because of his refusal to address the House on the state of the nation and his inability to tackle the nation's myriad of challenges.
The President having failed to keep to his promise to honor the invitation of the House, we, as members of the PDP caucus, restate our call on Nigerians across all tribes, across all religion, across political party, to awaken their representatives and senators to the realities of the moment and rescue our dear country Nigeria from this road to perdition by invoking their constitutional powers under Section 143 of the Nigerian Constitution, and commence an impeachment proceeding against President Muhammadu Buhari for gross incompetence and breach of Section 14(2)(b) of the Nigerian Constitution.
The point that is important that we are trying to point out from this part of the side of the table is, do you sleep peacefully? Are you satisfied with the education of this country? Are you satisfied with the situation of your life? Do you sleep with your two eyes closed? Are you worried? Do you will travel peacefully for Christmas? If you are not going to travel peacefully for Christmas, if you are afraid that even in your home, your children will not be safe, is it not time for you to join the few minority the way you call us so that we can put things right in.
There was drama at the National Assembly as persons living with disabilities forced their way into the Assembly complex over the refusal of the lawmakers to meet and engage them. The group from the Niger Delta promised to make life miserable for the senators if they continue to ignore them in order to refuse their request for Christmas packages. They say despite sending letters to the senators, which were duly received, they have continued to pretend that their demands are not important.
Now we came all the way from Niger Delta to this place, only to meet with them. We gave them a proposal for World Disability Day celebration and Christmas package. And we do a copy to all the Niger Delta senators, which they recognize it. And they refuse to attend to us. We came here today telling them they should hold a meeting. All they do is to send their security men against us, because they know we cannot do anything. Today, they must answer our proposal.
We've heard all you have said, and you have every right to say those things you have said. But what we want to urge you is to please note that, like you said earlier, violence will not solve problem. We have taken you seriously. Nobody is doing any scam on you, no scam. So remove that scam from your mind.
You see me here, when my leader was talking, I went out to make a call. You know who I called? I called the coordinator of Amnesty. I also called the MD of NDDC when I went out now to tell them that I want to see them, so that we can put our heads together and know how we are going to help people who are from the Niger Delta. But I can assure you, and take me seriously, that you will do your Christmas.
The State of Emergency GBV group has once again called on the Nigerian Governors Forum to match words with action following its declaration of a state of emergency on sexual and gender-based violence across Nigeria. The group, who made the call while lending its voice to the 16 days of activism to commemorate the International Day for the Elimination of Violence Against Women, advocated for the immediate domestication of actions to halt the scourge of sexual and gender-based violence, especially in states which are yet to take affirmative actions against it. Addressing a press conference in Abuja, the group explained that out of 21 targeted states, only 5 states, including Bauchi, Akwa Ibom, Abia, Delta, and Kwara, have passed the law.
We reminded the Nigerian Governors Forum to walk the talk and fulfill the commitment they made on 12th of June 2020 when they declared a state of emergency against sexual and gender-based violence. It is rather discouraging that since the Governors Forum gave this assurance, only 4 states out of the 21, Bauchi, Akwa Ibom, and very recently, Abia, Delta, and Kwara states have passed this law. It is important to note that the passage of this very important law in these 18 states will enable a nationally coordinated implementation strategy against GBV.
All the governors were talking about are men in these states, and I can't understand why, as a country, we cannot protect the vulnerable and weak people. That does not even tell well as a country that we are not putting in place legal and regulatory frameworks backed by the needed funding. How would we live in a society where men would rape girls and women and go away with it? What kind of country is this? For us to enjoy peace and security, we must ensure justice.
As a movement, our demands remain establishment of sexual assault referral centers and well-equipped shelters in every state. These shelters should also be backed with a coordinated, sustainably funded support system. Only 17 states of 36 and the FCT have established these sexual assault referral centers.
We've lost too many lives to the evils of sexual and gender crimes. This must not be allowed to continue. Nigerians must hold their leaders to account and ensure that these laws are not just passed, but that perpetrators of sexual and gender-based violence are punished accordingly.
The sex offenders register is supposed to be updated by the correctional facilities, right? But we don't have the sex offenders register populated enough as it should be. Perhaps if we had those kind of things, and then we could come back to a system where we deployed, for instance, the polygraph services of the EFCC to ensure repeat testing after every 6 months for offenders of sexual and gender-based violence. Then we could checkmate, that's when they come out from prison, right? Then we could checkmate to what extent they have been of good behavior or they've not been of good.
The African Youth Growth Foundation, AYGF, has organized the Migration and Communication Campaign to discourage young Nigerians from embarking on illegal migration. This executive director of the foundation, Arume Salifu, stated this during the ceremony to award winners of an essay writing and debate competition organized to sensitize youths on the hazards of irregular migration. Control NCDC has registered 1,145 new infections of COVID-19 in the country and 1 death. The agency, via its verified website on Thursday, said the figure was the highest ever infection recorded in 1 day since record-keeping of COVID-19 commenced in Nigeria. The latest figure surpassed the 930 cases recorded across the country on Wednesday, December 16. The new infections are from 23 states and the Federal Capital Territory. 335 patients have also been discharged after testing negative for the virus. Governor Simon Lalong of Plateau State has tested positive for COVID-19 and has gone into self-isolation. The governor's director of press and publicity, Makut Macham, who confirmed this in a statement in Jos on Thursday, said he is asymptomatic. While Lalong's test results returned positive, other members of his family tested negative. The deputy governor of the state, Sonny Theoden, would handle all state matters in his absence. And the Federal Ministry of Health says the rate of pre-travel COVID-19 testing for travels within the ECOWAS region will be harmonized. The Minister of Health, Dr. Sagie Ehanire, who spoke at the Presidential Task Force daily briefing in Abuja, said the conclusion was made at the 4th meeting of ECOWAS Ministerial Coordinating Committee on COVID-19. Ehanire also said that the technical working group of the Health Ministry on COVID-19 was examining modalities to obtain access to vaccine for the country. According to Ehanire, the country's epidemiological trend has already started to show that the curve is rising again, with the total number of active cases now 7,087. This is also a corresponding increase. There is also a corresponding increase in the number of serious cases requiring hospital admission in high-density units for oxygen therapy or mechanical ventilation support in intensive care units. The Senior Staff Association of Nigerian Polytechnics, SANIP, has scheduled a 14-day warning strike to commence nationwide on January 4. Its national president, Adebanjo Ogunsipe, who made the announcement in Abuja while addressing newsmen at the end of the 62nd regular meeting of the General Executive Council of the association, said the decision was taken because the federal government had failed to meet the demands of the union. The demands include the implementation of the needs assessment report and release of funds for the polytechnic sector, as well as the release of a scheme of service for polytechnic workers. Other demands are payment of arrears of minimum wage for the staff of polytechnics and the reconstitution of the governing councils of all federal and state polytechnics, among others. The news continues after this break.
It is engagement we need to have.
Those who suffer miscarriages are never taken into account.
Members of the National Assembly are also influence peddlers.
You are sitting on Nigerians' money.
From the barbing, I pay my rent. On the barbing, I send my children to school.
A consultative engagement.
No any tangible notification before they ban us.
It's one thing for people to be at your back and the heat of the moment, and another thing for them to still be with you when push comes to shove.
I will do everything to take Lagos out of the national grid.
On Today with John and Helen, Charlie Boy will be talking about his family.
Family means that place that you run to when you're weather beaten by your environment and society. Family means everything. Family is one of the greatest masterpieces of God. When people start to question a lot of things that I do, I always smile, because if they knew where I'm coming from, they wouldn't say some of the things that they say.
Join us this Saturday, 19th of December at 9 a.m.
Nigeria, by extension, Africa, is faced with a lot of challenges. The growing youth population with little engagement, that is a ticking time bomb. We are a blessed people with diverse culture and highly cerebral minds who have a lot to say. And yes, we are talking. It is important we drive the right conversation that informs, inspires, influences thoughts and action. If we say there's beauty in our diversity, then let us embrace our diverse culture. We must continue to courageously be the voice of transformation, as we are the hope for the future. Yesterday's conversations shape today. What are you saying to shape your tomorrow? We know you have a lot to say, and we are here to hear you.
You're watching the news on Plus TV Africa. Going out to other parts of Africa. The Director of Prevention of the Senegalese Ministry of Health and Social Action, Mamadou Ndiaye, says the country will receive its first doses of the COVID-19 vaccine in March. Ndiaye, who was speaking during an interview, said members of the Gavi, the Vaccine Alliance, including Senegal, would have these first doses after approval by the World Health Organization. The Senegalese Minister of Health and Social Action recently said the West African country had not chosen a vaccine at this stage, but that it was participating in the international mechanism for group purchasing of vaccines. On Thursday, the Africa Centers for Disease Control and Prevention released a survey showing that a predominant majority, that's about 79% average, of respondents in Africa would take a COVID-19 vaccine if it were deemed safe and effective. And outside Africa, US President-elect Joe Biden has tested negative for COVID-19 after an incoming White House advisor, Cedric Richmond, contracted the deadly respiratory disease. Spokeswoman Kate Bedingfield said in a statement that Richmond was not in close contact with Biden as defined by the Centers for Disease Control. Pop-up coronavirus testing sites in Sydney were inundated with long lines of people waiting to get tested on Friday, December 18, after Australian states and territories began imposing border restrictions upon the detection of 28 cases from a cluster on Sydney's northern beaches, with fears the number of infections will rise. Health authorities fear the cluster may have spread to other areas of Sydney, Australia's most populous city, as they have yet to determine the source of the infections.
New South Wales has dealt with many of these challenges over the course of recent months and over the course of the COVID-19 pandemic. New South Wales have demonstrated an extraordinary capacity to deal with these challenges, and I retain full confidence in their ability to do that. The virus has not gone away, It is still there, and as a result, all the measures that we continuously take are necessary to continue to protect Australia. We've dealt with this before, we'll deal with it again. It's important that people just remain calm about these issues and follow the instructions that they're receiving from their local health.
And in business, the bill for the establishment of the National Tea and Coffee Development Council has passed the second reading on the floor of the Senate. The bill, which is expected to harness the nation's resources and compel the federal government to invest in the planting of tea and coffee, was sponsored by Senator Yusuf Abubakar from Taraba State.
It is regrettable that governments have not made any major impact in terms of active involvement and or participating in tea and coffee growth, production and marketing sectors of the economy. The only government presence in the development of tea production could be placed in the mid-70s when government entered into joint venture with some state governments and private entrepreneurs to set up a tea farm and factory in Taraba State.
This is a very important bill. We have very mighty, massive land where we can produce tea, where we can produce coffee. If we utilize and harness such environments, we can help in diversifying the Nigerian economy. A bill for an act to provide for the establishment of the National Tea and Coffee Development Council to develop and promote growing production and marketing of tea and coffee in Nigeria, and for other matters connected therewith. 2020 second reading taken, and the bill is referred to the Committee on Agriculture and Rural Development to report back within 4 weeks.
The debts owed by energy firms to Nigerian banks rose by 200 billion naira to 5.85 trillion naira in the third quarter of this year. This is according to the National Bureau of Statistics. The 5.85 trillion naira represents 29.44% of the 19.87 trillion naira loans advanced to the private sector as of the end of September. Oil and gas firms, which receives the biggest share of the credit from the banks, increased their debt by 180 billion naira to 5.12 trillion naira in the third quarter from 4.94 trillion naira in the second quarter. A global credit rating agency, Fitch Ratings, noted in a December 8 report that Nigerian bank asset quality had historically fallen with oil prices, with the oil sector representing 28% of the loans at the end of the first quarter of 2020. We'll bring you sports news after this break. Stay with us.
This Medan has been directed to empower 1,000 persons with disabilities in each state in the next 12 months.
When I start hearing the shoot of guns,
whatever I've done.
Every public policy has winners and losers, and some will not be very happy with you, while others, usually the silent majority, will be quite happy.
First point of accountability is asking questions.
Hello and welcome to Plus Sports and Plus TV Africa. I am Udoka Njoko.
Hi everyone, welcome to Plus Training.
You cannot continue to recycle poverty while you're spending a lot of money on unproductive ventures.
The government has to feel the impact.
Honorable Commissioner, welcome to the show.
And in sports, the favourites for January's Dakar Rally, including reigning champion Carlos Sainz, are gearing up for the epic race, which will take drivers through the varied landscapes of Saudi Arabia for the second year running. And Sainz recently said he believes he is in good shape with only some fine-tuning to work out before the January 3 to 15 rally kicks off. Stefan Peter Hansel, who finished third in 2020, said his car and his team were ready to go for the win in 2021. And 2020 runner-up Nasser Al-Attiyah said he was feeling confident after beating Sainz to win the Andalusia Rally in October, which was the main warm-up event to next year's Dakar. The second edition, to be held in Saudi Arabia, will follow an exhausting loop through the Middle Eastern country that will start and finish in the western Saudi city of Jeddah. And still in sports, Saul Canelo Alvarez says he has taken a risk in facing Callum Smith, but warned he can overcome the champion's significant height and reach advantage. Alvarez has not lost since 2013 and starts as a favorite against the WBA World Super Middleweight Champion for Saturday's bout in San Antonio, Texas. Photographs of Smith standing 7 inches taller than his rival have led some to believe he could land an upset. The vacant WBC World Super Middleweight title will also be on the line, meaning the victor will leave the ring with 2 of the 4 significant world belts at 168 lbs. Alvarez's only defeat in 56 fights came against Floyd Mayweather, and he has won versions of a world title in 4 different weight categories throughout a decorated professional career, which began when he was just 15. And that's it on Sports Update on Plus TV Africa. I'm Udoka Njoko.
Thank you, Udoka. And that's the news at this hour. For more news updates, please follow us at Plus TV Africa on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. You can also subscribe to our YouTube channel at Plus TV Africa. We will be back later with more stories making the headlines. Please join us again. Thank you for your time, and remember to stay safe.
For upcoming artists to blow in Nigeria.
Welcome to Plus Trending. I am Buki November, your host, saying thank you for joining us on today's episode.
Welcome back. It's tea time on Plus TV Africa.
Practice makes perfect. I'm not perfect yet, but I'm a lot better than I used to be.
He's a king. He's entitled to marry 100 if he wants to.
Our guest today on One-on-One is Chinenye Imba Uzuko. Has a 30-year career in marketing, communications, multimedia and enterprise software development, e-learning technology strategy, software development and change transformation strategy in health, education and governance. He founded the multiple award-winning technology solutions pioneer Infographics, Nigeria, and also worked in Microsoft Cooperation as general manager, Anglophone West Africa. Departing in 2009 to pursue his vision of a borderless Africa in his current role as the managing partner of Grand Central and lead partner of IX Consult, a boutique startup incubator. He is the president, Institute of Software Practitioners of Nigeria, a trustee, Education Reform Intervention Team. Thank you for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Okay, so you're a technology consultant. How did you get so passionate about education?
First of all, I got into university to study veterinary medicine and eventually left veterinary medicine to start to read political science and then ended up in technology.
Okay.
So I've been through many areas and usually through the back door, kind of like figuring out, oh, this looks interesting, this looks interesting. What it has led me to is a conviction that success actually begins with education. There's nothing else. Literally, if you have, we're all born with certain gifts, certain abilities, certain talents. If you do not pass through education and a solid education, you will have great difficulty being successful in life. So I started to focus more on education technology, and that led us into education reform, looking at things around how do you actually create capacity at a national level for quality education. So I've been doing that for about 18 years now.
Wow. Okay. So let's start with the elephant in the room. How do we stop the incessant ASUU strike, and get a more progressive solution?
That's a big elephant. Okay, so ASUU strikes for a reason.
Okay.
And if you really want to solve the problem of the strike, you have to remove the reason. But I think over the last 30 years of ASUU strikes, that reason may not be so clear to all of us anymore, including ASUU. And perhaps even the federal government that actually is the protagonist on the other side. And what was the reason? The fundamental reason for a union is to protect the welfare of its members. And that's what ASUU does. It has to protect the welfare of the academic staff of the universities. And so that's its reason for existence. But it operates within a sector that is supposed to also take responsibility for. And it has broadened that understanding of the welfare of its members to include the welfare of the entire tertiary education system. So they kind of like stand as representatives, but they're not the only ones. There's the non-academic staff union, there's the students union, there are different groups that are in that ecosystem that take care of the various constituencies within the ecosystem. So ASUU doesn't stand solely for the entire ecosystem. So what does that lead us to? It means that the reason for ASUU, if you make the staff welfare as they desire it to be, or as a country desires it to be, then there will be no strikes. But when you unpack that, you start to see a lot of other issues that are involved. And one of the biggest questions that we need to ask ourselves is around, you pay somebody a wage, and you're paying that person a wage for productivity. If the output is not forthcoming, then what do? In the private sector, you let the person go. You try to get them to produce. You work on training and reskilling and retooling, and eventually, if it doesn't work out, you ask the person to go. ASUU's perspective is that if we say that they are not performing, as they have themselves admitted, that they're not producing graduates of world-class standard, they say the reason is because we have not created the environment. The owners of the schools have not created the environment for them to work. But you and I went to school. I went to school in Nigeria. You probably went to school in Nigeria. If the students were asked the question today, over the past 10, 20 years, they would tell you clearly that there are other issues. And the report says the number one problem in Nigerian universities, the Nigerian university system, is leadership and governance. Leadership and governance. That was the first problem that they identified. Of course, they identified infrastructure issues, which is kind of like classrooms, hostels, and things like that. But it's very significant that the truth was told. The central problem of the universities is leadership and governance. And if you trace the problems that we have in a tertiary institution back to the source, you will find that the decline in tertiary education actually began with the failure of leadership and the failure of governance. Leadership in terms of within the universities themselves, the quality of the vice chancellors that were elected into office, the quality of the deans of the faculties and the heads of departments, where it moved more into the political realm than it did into their performance for the function for the purpose for which they were employed. That's leadership. And then you go into governance, and governance is about the quality framework. What happens fundamentally when you have a system that its production, what it produces, is intangible? You take a student at 16, 17, 18 years old, you pass him through a system or her through a system for 4 years, and the output of that 4 years is supposed to be a child that is ready to work in industry and be productive to society.
True.
That should be the measure. And on the basis of your capacity to produce those kind of students, you are then promoted through the system. You're also promoted through the system on the basis of your own productivity in terms of your research. because a university lecturer does teaching and learning. So you instruct, right? And you instruct the generations that pass through you, but you also do new research to uncover new knowledge.
Okay.
And only when you uncover new knowledge can you publish. If you're not publishing, then what? So if you go and you look at that report in 2012, it says that 80% of the research of the publications coming from the university system was published to local journals. If you look at the hierarchy, the governance structure for checking out, for evaluating performance, the local journals, they're all graded. The highest, of course, is publishing when your paper is accepted at an international level. That's the highest level. If 80% of the output is in the local journals, and with no intention to disrespect anyone, but that's the way that the system is structured, it means that the research output is poor. The teaching output is poor. So where are we?
Listening to the government, it says the famous 2009 agreement signed by the federal government to release 300 billion naira yearly for 1.3 trillion funding of facilities is unrealistic and is blaming past government. Shouldn't government be a continuum?
Indeed, government has to be a continuum. So here's the thing. Government reached an agreement in 2009 and was unable to implement it for various reasons. That agreement was later on revised. And I remember that it was President Jonathan who took over the negotiations with ASU at some point. And he came from the university system himself, and he sat in those meetings with them, and they reached a resolution. And he even at some point actually is reported to have even overridden his Minister of Finance at the time, Dr. Okonjo-Iweala, and insisting that these funds would be released. So clearly he knew where he was going to get the funding from. But you always have to match that to government's other responsibilities. And this is where we have to ask ourselves fundamental questions. Yes, government is a continuum, but the circumstances in which agreements are reached don't stay the same. This is where in the year 2020, approaching 2021, you're arguing about an agreement that was established, an agreement that was met in 2009. So 11 years later, you're insisting on the same thing. In fact, if we look at the at inflation, whatever was agreed on in 2009, in Naira terms, right, it was set in dollars, and in Naira terms, it is now 3 times that amount of money.
Sure.
So where is that money going to come from today? Do you want to now increment that funding from 2009? And remember, the circumstances in 2009 carried through 11 years later. The universities have deteriorated even further over those 11 years. So it goes back to that question. Yes, government is a continuum, but everybody knows that the context will always change.
Why is funding just the priority and just the focus? Nobody's talking about, the leadership problems in universities.
I think it's because you're asking the teacher to grade himself and not asking the students and not asking the parents. If you're in a society where if you are marking your own exam, there's certain things that you would ignore.
True.
In fairness to ASU, they have mentioned at a number of times that they have challenges within their body, and some of those challenges they ascribe to politics. So in many of the universities now, there's this whole indigenization thing. So if you're not from that area, from that area, you don't become the vice chancellor. The indigenes insist on a certain number of lecturers and things like that. There are politicians who interfere in the hiring process. And the structure of the universities themselves has been kind of like infused by the system that we have in our country as a whole. Why is funding brought up? Because funding is what we can all understand. Remember, ASU is a union. And as a union, they would always, they have their own strategies around negotiation. The one thing that makes a lot of sense to all people who are involved in the ecosystem is that we want fancy universities, the kind that you send your children to abroad. That's the refrain. Oh, you're sending your children abroad. The leaders send their children abroad to fancy schools, but they don't want to create the same kind of environment locally. So people can relate to that, and it's a fantastic negotiating chip. But the issue is bigger than that. And this is what bothers me the most. When we've had discussions, and we've had occasion to relate with ASU, I've been struck by the absence of a responsibility or accountability for envisioning education for the entire society.
Okay.
There's this narrow focus on the tertiary institution, as though if you solve that problem, you've solved all problems. The tertiary institutions in this country have a gross enrollment of under 2 million students. They have a staff strength, academic staff strength of under 100,000 across all 167 or 169 universities. At 2 million, which at 2 million, that's about approximately 1% of our society, 1% of our population. The global benchmark for development impacting, for tertiary education impacting your GDP is 8%. So with the capacity of our system, we are just not producing enough intellectual capital for enough human capital to drive development in this country. And the answer doesn't lie in funding the current system. Indeed, what I believe very strongly is that ASU and possibly even the federal government, they are locked into this fight that is a fight for the 19th century.
Okay.
They're struggling to rebuild structures and institutions and everything that belonged in the 19th century and not in the 21st century. Nobody is talking about what should the new model of education be.
So how do we begin to get to those conversations? Because we can't get stuck here forever. How do we begin to, and I like what you said about how parents, because those are the people that have the power, the parents paying the school fees and the students benefiting from the system. But in the current situation we have now, the parents and the students are powerless. You know, they're unable to do anything. So how do we begin to move that conversation forward? How do I begin to have power as a parent in a public university? How do the students begin to have power? Because give, for example, I did a course in, Lagos Business School for the first time. That was right after I left university. And they told me to grade my facilitator. I thought it was a trap. I was like, in Nigerian university, you never do that. So, but how do we begin to move that conversation, forward, as a country beyond just the federal government right now? How do we do that?
I think you've made a great point, and let's understand that in Nigeria, what is now called the Office of the Citizen is an office that has been abandoned by the citizens themselves. We have, when you think about elections over the past 20, 30 years, how has education ranked in terms of priorities that have been set by the electorate for what they want to see from their elected officials? Because you have to set your prioritization right. The truth is that we haven't set education as a priority. And if you look at our budgets, it explains that. Because in the budgets, the education budgets, 80% of the money goes to recurrent expenditure and 20% to capital. So you're certainly not growing. So you have a system where where your population is exploding. We say we have, and that, I always go to numbers because numbers actually tell a story that you have to confront. Remember I said that there are only 2 million students in Nigeria's universities. In that 2 million, only 5.3% of that is actually in private education, private universities. The rest are in public schools. Which means that if you don't solve the problem of public education at a tertiary level, then you don't have an education system at tertiary level at all.
Okay, please stay with us. We'll go on a short break and be right back.
It is engagement we need to have.
Those who suffer miscarriages are never taken into account.
Members of the National Assembly are also influence peddlers.
You are sitting on Nigerians' money.
From the Babin, I pay my rent. On the Babin, I send my children to school.
A consultative engagement.
No any tangible notification before they ban us.
It's one thing for people to be at your back and the heat of the moment, and another thing for them to still be with you when push comes to shove.
I will do everything to take Lagos out of the national grid.
Thank you for staying with us. We're still on 101, talking about education. So, Jenny, please carry on.
So I was trying to make the point that you have a tertiary education system that represents about 2 million of a population of 200 million, approximately 200 million people. So if you take the numbers again and you look and you say, well, if they say indeed that Nigeria's population, 60% of our population is youth, 60% of 100 million is 60 million, 60% of 200 million is 120 million. Essentially what it means is that you have to have an education system that accommodates 120 million people from early childhood all the way to on-the-job training.
True.
So within that 120 million, ASU is fighting for funding for 2 million. What happens to the rest of the population? And shouldn't that be a concern? Why is it that the system is the way that it is? It's fundamental. I think the bottom line is really accountability.
Okay.
The Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria says, it offers a guarantee for free education, qualitative education to every citizen of Nigeria. That's what the Constitution says. The Child Rights Act reinforces that of 2003, reinforces that and says every child has a right to education. Because we understand that without education, you cannot be a good citizen, you cannot be a productive member of your society.
True.
So constitutionally we say so, but if you go to the Constitution, you will see there, it says where practicable. So we wrote a constitution that offered a guarantee and then provided a backdoor for us to abdicate that responsibility. And all ourselves as citizens, as well as the government, we have gone through that backdoor with great happiness and abdicated our responsibility. So there is no accountability within the system. If you can hold, the only person who is held accountable in the education system is the student. The student doesn't pass an exam, he fails. The student has to write a thesis, he has to develop it somehow, he fails. The student gets out of the university, out of the education system, and goes to get a job and cannot get the job because he's not ready for industry, he fails. What happens to all the people in the entire value chain, from the highest of levels to the lowest of levels? What is their accountability to the student? And how do you hold them effectively accountable? That's the role of the Office of the Citizen.
So how do we begin to do that? Because I remember when I was in university, some of our lecturers would say A is for God, B is for me, and then you guys get C, D, and E, along the way. So even the student is not even, like he's going to make an effort, but he's already even demoralized. And then I have to add it to a second question. How do we begin to change? Because I find that many times, many students who have failed within the Nigerian educational system leave the country, and then they're excellent students everywhere else. How do we begin to change that? How do we begin to enforce? So yes, you've told us that the Office of the Citizen is important. So how do I begin to want to do this? Because oftentimes, even in schools, when students have student unions and try to make lecturers accountable, if you remember the report done by BBC where some lecturers were exposed, even some lecturers came out to defend those lecturers, even when there were video evidence to show. So how do you begin to do that? Because when student unions begin to try and make lecturers accountable, they are victimized, expelled. How do we do that? What do we need to do?
And this is where it's a great question. This is where we have to, because we cannot abstract the education sector from the rest of the society. The challenge is in the larger society. So if we admit that we are not really practicing, we're not really playing our roles in a democracy, and then we understand that the structure that we have is top-down. That's why there is so much emphasis on who the leadership is in every layer of our organization, every layer of our society. If you go to school and you see the structures in a school, you have something called a PTA.
Yes.
The PTA holds the school accountable. Right?
True.
And the school then has to answer to the PTA for certain things that it does. When that system does not work, then the school administration and ownership is completely liberated from any accountability. They can do what they want to do.
But in a university system, how do you have a PTA meeting?
Exactly.
Because that happens in a primary and secondary school.
So now this was where the unions came up, because the unions came up as a means of applying some kind of a check in its system, in the former system that we had. So you had the NANS, you had the ASU, you had the non-academic staff union and all that sort of stuff. So these guys were really supposed to be like a counterbalance to authority, which resided at that time in the public universities and the federal government.
Okay.
Over time, particularly during the military regime, they worked to break the power of those unions. And by breaking the power of those unions, they liberated themselves from responsibility. We moved into a democratic democratic environment, and they continued, the civilians who now took over continued with the same attitude as though they were military. And so the lack of accountability is not there. What is the how? I think that there are two or three things that need to happen. The first is that, and unfortunately, all these things have to start from the top, because that's the structure that we currently have. First of all, we have to accept that we cannot, in the year 2020, be building an education system that's on a 19th century model. So that means that we have to fundamentally re-envision education for the 21st century. Okay. And when we do so, we will find that a lot of people, including ASU, will be uncomfortable. Because what it means is that the ASU lecturer is no longer evaluated based on what his vice chancellor or his head of department or his faculty head thinks. Because the students will have, in the 21st century learning environment, the student will take courses from a lecturer in Harvard. He will take courses from a lecturer in MIT. He will take courses from a lecturer in the university in China. He will take from Australia. And so the university lecturer in ASU, in Nigeria, is no longer measuring himself against his neighbor, but against the global standard. And the student will be able to pick and choose what courses he or she wants to attend from anywhere in the world. That fundamental transformation is a threat to the existing system, because then those who cannot meet up to that standard will fall by the wayside.
True.
Today I was going through a document for Eton College. Eton College is a secondary school in the UK. And it's one of the oldest and one of the most famous schools. And I was looking at the house masters and the credentials of the house masters, those who manage the students in the school boarding environment. There wasn't a single one who didn't have like a PhD or a master's from an Oxford or a Cambridge.
Wow.
They had studied things like neuroscience, nuclear physics, chemistry, the classics in Oxford and all that. Secondary school. How does a secondary school student in Umuahia compete with the secondary school student who has gone to an Eton College in a flat world that has been created by the 21st century? You made a good point around what happens to a student when he leaves Nigeria. And I want you to mark it by two things. First of all, for almost 40 years, we have been doing something called Alternative to Practical as an exam.
Okay.
Alternative to Practical is an exam that was put in place for students who didn't have access to labs, who actually never did the titration, didn't do the experiments that were required to do in physics, chemistry, and biology.
Okay.
And that Alternative to Practical has become the de facto exam because the schools don't have labs. Now, you do Alternative to Practical, and then you take an exam to get into university to study medicine. You have never once done a single experiment in a lab. So what do we do? If you look at the cost of implementing laboratories, each laboratory in a secondary school would cost something between 80 and 100 million naira for one lab.
Wow.
So how many of them can we possibly build? You need to be able to understand the limitations that you're facing. If we took the entire federal budget and applied it to education, we would probably not even be able to meet up with the infrastructure.
Okay, so this leads me to my next question of how can we begin to merge technology to help with education, not just on the tertiary level, but also across board, so that we don't have to, because even, the open university system that we have in Nigeria that we assumed will make things better still is very, hands. So yes, the students don't physically go in except when they have exams, but they really don't use so much technology. How do we begin to use technology to reduce this cost and to improve education, on a whole, not just from tertiary, but from primary, secondary to tertiary?
The first challenge we have is not the how. The first challenge we have is that we don't believe it. If we believed it, we would have committed to it.
But I think we believe it. Sorry to interrupt, because the pandemic
what did ASU tell you? What did ASU tell us about online?
Okay, yes, well, true.
So they said it is impossible.
But they said it to be practicable, because during this time, most schools now, even for the secondary schools, they've alternated the days where they go to school 2 days in a week.
You and I understand
3 days in a week.
We know it's a reality.
Okay.
But if the the Academic Association of Universities, highest, where all our eggheads are, tell you it cannot work, then what do you expect the government to do? Force it down their throats? Who's going to make it happen? The issue is that by 2014, the Indira Gandhi National Open University had more students, at 2.2 million students, than the entire 167 universities in Nigeria today have. One university, online university, had more students than the entirety of all 167 physical universities.
But Chidi, I think you've also alluded to the
So what
problem.
we need to do is this. So the first thing is, and sorry, just to kind of, because I know we always have time limitations. Yeah. The first thing is that we have to make a national commitment.
Okay.
Right? And that national commitment can only come when we have an open and public acceptance that the 19th century model for education has to go. And we must, as a country, go to the 21st century. And you cannot go to a 21st century model without accepting and embracing technology as the fundamental enabler of learning.
There's so many questions I want to ask. There's so many questions, but sadly we can't take, time, because I want to ask about internet penetration. How are we going to have that, across the
We don't need the internet.
We don't, across the country. We don't need the internet.
No.
What do we need then? Please let's just make this your last one. What do we need to be able to go fully online?
So if this were a classroom for me, and every building around here was housed parents with children who wanted to go to my school,
okay,
what I would do is that I would set up Wi-Fi access using a simple router, no internet. My computer will be here, all my lessons will be here, and anybody who is around, just like you use your MiFi, right? Your MiFi, you're connecting to me this time, not connecting to the internet. And anything that I broadcast from my computer here, anybody in this vicinity who logs on to my network will get exactly the same content. So 80% of the content that is required, even up to 90% of the content that is required to teach, does not require connection to the internet.
Okay.
So I can create in a rural community. I can bring the world to a rural community. How would I do that? I take my laptop. I download all the content that I require onto my laptop. It's powered for 8 hours. I pass my neighbor generator. I go to a primary school, and I take a small projector, and I go to a primary school, and I project on the wall. I will run every single class to world-class standard off of that my laptop, because I can have the entirety of Encyclopedia Britannica on my laptop. I can have all the lessons from early childhood through to university. I can have over 6,000, and it's not theory. We've done this in Cross River State, where we went by canoes into villages, and we taught teachers how to use laptops in their classrooms.
Wow, interesting. Sadly, we will have to go. And please, we'd like to have you again. I hope you'll make time to come again. Thank you very much.
Thank you for having me.
That's all we can take on this episode of 101. Please join us again. I'm Fumi Onuajefe.
Sexually abused and molested. This is the story of Taiwo Akinlami, who became a product of his experience. A prey became the predator. But by grace, divine intervention, and the strong will to change, Taiwo Akinlami has become a protector. He shares his inspiring story of transformation and refusal to remain knocked down by experiences that changed his childhood forever.
My experience is not peculiar. It's nothing new.
when I tell my story, I found that many people, come to me to say, thank you for sharing your story. You're giving me the boldness to share mine. You're giving me the courage to speak up. But that includes men and women. I've seen people come to me, break down to say, wow, thank you for talking about what you went through. So what did I go through? Well, I lost my virginity at just 6 years old. That's the year I started primary school, because my mother would go to the market and leave me with a woman who was a neighbor. And this woman would strip me like I do with a 6-year-old boy, what a woman should do with a man. And before I knew it, my sexuality was awoken. I was being sexually molested. I was being made to play with every part of the body of this woman. I was messed up thoroughly. And unfortunately, my parents were not aware of my issues, because we never had that relationship. My parents never spoke to me about my sexuality. They never told me about how to protect myself. And my parents made a fundamental mistake thinking that a neighbor was a nanny. Because somebody was close to them, somebody was living in the same compound with them, they concluded that the person was a nanny. They also concluded that because somebody was close to them, was living in the same house with them, the person was good enough to protect me. They forget that those who abuse children, those who sexually molest them, don't have special look. They don't have special hairdo. There's nothing special about them. They don't carry a bell saying, I molest children, take your children away. As a matter of fact, they try as much as possible to be subtle. And so they didn't understand all of that. So they felt that because somebody was a neighbor, the person was a nanny, and because somebody was a neighbor, the person was good enough, was a good person that could protect me. Unfortunately, they were wrong. And because they were wrong, I was in the hand of this woman for like 2 years. And the third thing was that I didn't have conversation with my parents. They didn't encourage us to talk. Every time they showed up with a cane. Every time they showed up with to chastise us. We were chastised for everything we did wrong. We never commended for everything we did right. So we're not even bold enough. We're not even thinking that we're not even sure that if we reported this lady, if I reported this lady, my parents were not going to say that, are you stupid? What are you thinking about? Because I again was not even aware of my esteem as a person, because it's been beaten down. So as a teenager, I started having anal sex. After experiencing sexual abuse, my sexuality was awoken. Then from there, I started having anal sex with another male, who was close to being my age mate. Started doing that. And the cycle continues. By the time I became an adult, I wouldn't say that I was an adult, but yet I was being driven by my emotion, by my feelings, by my libido, because I've been messed up. And so I had multiple sex partners, prostitutes, those ones on the road, those ones in the brothel. In school, I was anything on the skirts, anything available. I said there was nothing like HIV. I said it was American invasion to discourage sex. So by why my friend and I felt that one guy on a girl might not be good enough. So why can't we do 2 or 3 guys on a girl? And we did that with prostitutes. And my friend tells me, I've slept with that girl. I said, no, you've not slept with her. Do you want to come and see it? If you want to come and see, let me do it for you live. And I go to see it, and he asked me, are you interested? She doesn't mind. And I find myself becoming a very strong masturbator. I could masturbate anywhere. Note that I was having sex regularly. Now, because you see, for you to protect your body, for you to understand the dignity of your body, you have to be taught. You have to be told. Not only taught, you have to be treated. Your body has to be treated with respect, with dignity. Nobody has the right to touch you without your consent. As a matter of fact, a child does not have capacity to give consent. So any sexual touch, any sexual relationship with a child is nothing but abuse, because the child does not have capacity to give consent. And so because of that, because of all of this, I becoming an adult, I didn't feel my body, my private, anything was worth anything. I felt if it was worth anything, why would it be taken away from me without my consent? You know, I felt if it was worth anything, how come nobody defended me? How come there was nobody I could speak to? How come I was suffering alone? How come I was suffering in silence? How come this woman was able to get away with what she did if, you know, this thing meant anything? And so that was my life, you know, big mess. I believed then that I had HIV because how wouldn't I? You know, because I was a prostitute, I was with girls. Masturbation, if I felt like masturbating, I was going on the road. I used saliva to masturbate. That's how bad it was. So my life was a life of an abused person, of a prey. I was a prey. Then I became a predator. But today I'm a protector. It's important how I made that transition. You know, it wasn't difficult to understand how I made the transition from being a prey to a predator. A prey will become a predator one day. You know, because when somebody is preyed upon, you are telling him this is jungle. If you have to survive also, when you come of age, prey on other people. You know, because that's how to survive. That's the way you know to survive. But what is not common is that I was a prey, I became a predator, now I'm a protector. And what just happened to me is the fact that February 16, 1997, I gave my life to Christ. And that was the beginning of transformation in my life. I just felt that I needed help. And I just felt that, and I was told Christ could help me. And I decided to take the chance. I say, I'm told you can help me. Please help. And when I gave my life to Christ, I just thought that by that experience of giving my life to Christ, everything was just going to be rosy and everything was going to be fine. But it was not so. Because I was dealing with, my mind was not dirty. My mind was dead. You know, think about any sexual perversion in the world, apart from sleeping with animals and incest. I've given it a trial. All kinds of mess. So when I sat in church, my mind was going to blow. My mind was thinking all kinds of things. If a woman was going in my front, I was coming behind, and she bent down to pick, if her car key drops, and she bent down to pick the key, pictures will come to my head. You know, Ben Carson says every human being has photographic brain. It's just that we're not ready to take responsibility for that reality. Now, this woman that sexually molested me, I'm 48 years old now. This happened at the age of 6 and 8, between 6 and 8. If you give me pen and paper now, I can draw her. I remember her face. I remember the size of her breast. I remember everything about her. But it's 40 years ago. I've not seen her. But if I see her now, I'm sure I can identify her. You know, but you see, it will have been okay if it is only her face that I remember. The damage she did to my psyche, the mess she caused to my mind, to my innocence. If childhood was synonymous with innocence, I never knew innocence. All of that damage were living with me, and I was thinking I couldn't cope. So I went to meet the man who introduced me to the church where I worship today. I worship in the Fountain of Life Church in Lokoju. That's where I worship now, under the leadership of Pastor Taiwo Bukoya. So I went to meet the man who introduced me to the church where I worship now. His name is Olakunle Shonya. So I told him I wasn't going to come to church again. This thing is not working. My mind is messed up. I'm in church. I'm weeping. I'm crying. Things are not working. You told me all things are new, but things are not new. My mind is messed up. I'd rather go back to my old life. In my old life, I was masturbating. In my old life, I was having sex at random. In my old life, there was no control. In my old life, I was cracking dirty jokes, using foul language. If I met a girl, the first question I might ask is that, do you have sex? You know, I just wanted to know how bad you are to know whether I'm going to roll with you or I'm not going to roll with you. I wasn't ready for any pampering. It was a rough life, and you needed people that were rough and ready, you know. That was the kind of life I was living. So I told him I was living, and he told me, he said, well, don't think that you're going to get your sanity by just thinking that you have given your life to Christ. Your mind was taken away from you. Your innocence was taken away from you. Your sanity was taken away from you. Your sexual sanity was taken away from you. If you are ever going to make a difference, you know, coupled with all the other abuses that I experienced, if you're ever going to make a difference, you need to fight for the sanity of your mind. You need to build capacity. You need to keep speaking to yourself. And so I embarked on what I call scriptural therapy. You know, even if there was any form of therapy, I couldn't afford it. But the one I could afford was I know I could get a copy of the Bible and I could begin to study. And I began to study, I began to work on my mind. I began to speak to myself. My life began to change one day at a time. I began to see a difference. My mind began to settle. I sat in church now. I could listen to the pastor. I became a worker. I began to get things done. My life began to take a new turn. Not one day, not 2 days. Every day I was witnessing progress. It was not fast. It was not quick, but it was sure because I kept, focusing on the regenerating power of scripture, to change a man. And so when I was called to the Nigerian bar 20 years ago, Chief Gani Fawehinmi was my uncle. He was the one who sent me to school. He paid for my university's education. And the conclusion was that I was going to pick up a job in his law firm. But I told the family I wasn't going to pick up a job, that I found something happening to me and I want to democratize it. My life is changing in a particular manner. I know there are many other people out there who have gone through what I've gone through, are thinking that there's no hope, who feel that they are done, who want to define their life by the errors of those who abused them. I know there were such people. So I felt I want to dedicate my life to fight for enlightenment. Chief Gani Fawehinmi was involved in human rights, but I felt, yes, it's human rights, asking government to respect people's rights. But I want to go to the people. I want to empower them. I want to help them.
What is skill? Skill is how to do. Knowledge is what to do. Skill is how to. There is a how to correct a child. There's a how to talk to a child. Psychology says, for every one wrong word you say to a child, you need 17 to correct it.
I've made my pain into my gain. What the enemy meant for evil has become the good that I pursue today. Maybe if I didn't have that experience, maybe I won't be doing what I'm doing today. Note, I'm not saying God orchestrated that experience. It wasn't God. It was the enemy. But God has a way of using what the enemy orchestrated for evil and turning around for good. As you're looking at me, I've treated the enemy, I've treated the devil. If I were dead, life would have been fair. If I were in Yaba left collecting tablet, life would have been fair. If I were in prison, life would have been fair. But I've overcome all of those things. And I'm here with you today, talking to you that change is an ever-present possibility for any human being who's ready to take responsibility. You cannot afford to live on the errors of your past. You can't lose your childhood and lose your adulthood. You can't lose both ways. Though when you were not in charge of yourself, some guys messed you up. And now you are in charge of yourself. You are still living in the past. You are still a slave to your past. Instead of becoming a pioneer of your future. You still say, my uncle did, if not my father did, if not my mother did. No. You have to move beyond that, because at the end of life, when you become a wretch, when your life amounts to nothing, when you can't stay with one woman, you can't stay with one man, when you are a big mess, you will not have one excuse. You will not have one reason for being that. You will have many excuses. And for every excuse that you give, life will show you people like me who went through the things that you went through, or even worse, and they've been able to turn their pain into their gain. Life is going to show you all of those people. And so are going to find there's no excuse for messing up. You can't start where you are. And you ask me, when is the day for change? It's today. You can just take that decision. I'm going to stop all of those things and get serious.
Indeed, the earlier the better. Change is a constant factor in life, and everyone is capable of being a better version of themselves. For Plus TV Africa, Amaka Okoye.
Fame, glamour, success, money, and all forms of flamboyance are what you associate with celebrities. But with the recent pockets of reports of Nigerian celebrities revealing their battles with depression, it calls for concern of a thin line between fame and depression, between appearance and reality, and many rhetorical questions. It is the desire of most artists to have an international deal and get international recognition. The quest for this fame and self-accomplishment continue with a lot of the big names now relocating outside the country. Nothing seems unchanged as racism is another social menace still confronting them. This leads to depression at the expense of love for their craft. A close observation shows that social media has continuously been a contributory factor. The regular interface with imaginary audience creates a lot of tension and illusions by many of these artists. Recently, many of our favorite stars such as Ari Song, Wajay, Dija, and a host of others have been vocal about their battles with depression. Plus TV Africa spoke to some key players such as a music executive and convener Social Media Week Lagos, Obi Asika, and a mental health specialist, Dr. Kadiri Memuna, and a popular Nigerian actor, Arike Akinyoju, who has been vocal about her struggles with depression.
I think it is. Yes, especially in this part of the world that we belong to, Nigeria, fame here, I think is a major cause of depression.
Because human beings are unique, and because human beings are, we all have our personal journey. They are what we call vulnerability risk factors. People are already vulnerable in one way or the other, maybe from adverse childhood experiences, and then with fame, which is somehow as you grow, it may be a childhood fame, because sometimes you see some children, they grow into fame, while some people are deliberate and intentional into achieving fame. Famous people have to keep up with, entertaining us. Famous people have to keep up with a particular personnel. Famous people have to keep up with, with all the challenges, even if they are going through a lot. We do not want to see them down. We are following them for the things that we want to get from them. They are inspiring people, they are influencing people, they are empowering people, they are doing a whole lot. So whatever they may be going through, the society, we don't want to see that part of them, even if they know they may be going through that is it. So they have to just keep on being, that person we want to see.
We should not be calling talents celebrities. Yes, they have become celebrities, but they became celebrities because of their talents, because of what they do. They are not just celebrities because they exist. So everybody, from my experience in life, all creative people have challenges in terms of putting together their process. And every time, it's like anywhere in the world, if you don't hear of your favorite actor for 5 years, it's one of two things. It's just A, they're not working, and B, they're not at this point in time getting offers. So what I would say is that a lot of people, if you work in the entertainment industries, if you work in those spaces, you will know that it is a high stress, high anxiety business. So therefore, the people who are working in these businesses are constantly seeking for affirmation and for support to see them through what they're doing. So in that regard, if you're in the public eye and you're constantly having to keep up appearances, it can become very, very difficult, especially if things are not going as well as they used to go in the past.
There was a time in my life I passed through depression, but I think it's not because of my career. It's because naturally I'm not the type that, things people say get to. Fine, I feel concerned when they say things or they expect me to live in a certain way and I'm not living that life. I feel concerned and I feel like, but it doesn't really get to me. So if I ever had depression, it wasn't basically on my career level.
That would be great. In fact, that would really, 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 help in this advocacy that, have been blazing the trail in Africa, trying to change the narrative and let it be a movement for people to understand that mental health is as important as our physical health, if not more important. And for the fact that it's intrinsically linked to our physical health, we have to guard, protect, and prioritize our mental health at every given point in time. So if we start seeing the media and entertainment industry putting our mental health as part of their package, it may not necessarily be a department because that's a tall order, but ensuring that from inception, when they are setting up that business, they incorporate what we call an employees assistance program. It's a subtle way of inculcating mental health services within your organization. What that just means is that as a business owner and having artists and producing whatever you're doing in media and entertainment, you and your employees, or you and your gang, you and your group have a safe space where you have been able to build a culture of compassion that individuals in that organization can speak up, can speak out, can seek for help from professionals in rendering this employees assistance program.
I don't actually agree that record labels, entertainment companies, or businesses should actually be having mental health departments. I think mental health is a very, very specialized issue. What they should be doing is being aware of mental health and have mental health professionals that they can relate to if they have issues with any of their talents or clients. Unfortunately, for many years, it has always been stigma here. So people do not engage the topic and they don't discuss their problems. But definitely, a lot of talents and a lot of people in society have mental health issues and issues with depression and anxiety and other things of that nature. So it's important to relate to mental health professionals who can help when you have somebody or friends or family or clients or talents who have any issues at all. You could you could insist that your clients and your talents do have regular counseling sessions, do have relationships with counselors and psychiatrists that they can have conversations and unload and unbundle any issues they might have. The best thing anybody can do is to stay engaged with the talent. So the talent, and that means that understand and know your talent very well. Understand what makes them tick, what makes them click, when they are happy, to be happy, or to be in a stable state of mind and frame of mind to enable them to produce their best work. And that normally is, if you're doing that, that means that talent has a strong manager. Strong management is key. And that doesn't necessarily come from the label. That could come from the artist side, but the artist manager, the person that really interfaces every day with the artist. A lot of times the label is literally just there to provide distribution, retail, marketing, and finance.
One dominant recommendation is for this artist to live in their realities and not all about impressing fans who change loyalty at slightest disappointment by their so-called quasi-demigods, whose foibles are as real as any man on the street. The story of Michael Jackson, who died in 2009, and later Whitney Houston in 2012, are few of the sad reminders that despite fame and pageantry, one's mental health must not be ignored. Reporting for Plus TV Africa, Ife Oshunkeye.
We are calling on all South Africans to wear a face mask whenever you leave home.
Governor of Lagos State has made the wearing of masks compulsory to fight against the coronavirus.
I want to encourage you to wear a mask wherever you go.
We will strictly ensure the mandatory use of face masks or coverings in public, in addition to maintaining physical distancing and personal hygiene.
As most countries in Africa approach ease of lockdown, one of the essential rules of leaving the house is you must wear a face mask. Entrepreneurs say the pandemic, albeit having many disadvantages, has presented opportunities as well, and one of these opportunities readily open for many is the production of face masks. Owners of garment-making factories and do-it-yourself champions have all jumped on this line of business. The question is, how efficient are these other masks compared to the initially recommended N95 respirators and surgical masks?
N95 masks are also called respirators, and they are designed to be disposable, tight-fitting to the face, creating a seal to prevent particles from getting in. And then they also have specialized filters, which filters about 95% of air particles or droplets. Cloth masks are usually not designed to fit the face, and so it doesn't really protect you from aerosols or droplets or air particles that can get into the respiratory system.
A lot of people might have no choice but to use a cloth mask due to the cost and availability of the surgical masks. And for some, it has become a fashion accessory. Whatever the case may be, it is important that it meets the requirement of a protection against any kind of droplet or fluid from and into the mouth, nose, and eyes. For the surgical mask, you use, take off, and dispose appropriately. But for the cloth masks, how do we maintain proper hygiene?
When you need to take off the mask, try not to touch the middle part. Take it off from the loops around your ears and drop it into antiseptic liquid. So if you have laundry soap, take a mixture of laundry soap, a bit of bleach, okay, and a bit of an antiseptic liquid. They have different types on the market. Make a little mixture and then drop it in. Let it sit for about 10 to 20 minutes. Pour that liquid away, make a fresh one, and then wash it and air dry. If possible, some people say iron it. If you can, do that. Also, wash your hands once you're done.
The Director General at NAFDAC, Professor Muji Adeyeye, encourages the use of non-medical face masks.
You mentioned that NAFDAC has announced not to use non-medical face masks. No, we did not do that. We said that non-medical face masks are for the masses, are for you and I. The medical face masks are for the healthcare workers because there is a shortage of the medical face mask.
However, NAFDAC warns against using low-quality face masks in terms of materials used for production. Remember, face masks are to be used while maintaining measures such as social distancing, not touching the face, eyes, or mouth, and washing of hands with soap for 20 seconds or use of alcohol-based hand sanitizers. Ensure that you stay safe. Your safety is our collective safety.
This is it for upcoming artists to blow in Nigeria.
Welcome to Plus Trending. I am Bukky November, your host, saying thank you for joining us on today's episode.
Welcome back. It's tea time on Plus TV Africa.
Practice makes perfect. I'm not perfect yet, but I'm a lot better than I used to be.
He's a king. He's entitled to marry 100 if he wants to.
My name is John Ayuba, and I am from Borno State.
In the night, I'll dress up, go outside, go look for men.
I was afraid. Let me just be open. I was really, really afraid to bring Rita in.
When I retired, yes, on 13, my girlfriend called me, say that if I want to travel, now at last, okay, may I look at the outfit. That time I do with my husband, and they work for Pure Water Factory. They manage the money, they pay me 8,000 naira at that time, 18,000. Manage money to the feed, take care of my two children. Then I say, okay, make I come Dubai. Then I say, how that side? Say that side, they okay, might come. I say, okay, no wahala. I say, but I not get money to come that side. Cause I know what go. Best one man day, the man go take care of my documents, everything. I say, okay, no wahala. So I can't do my passport. I can't go. When I reach home, my man say I don't meet a good place. Say that from that place go, everything don't dey okay for me. I understand. Then my whole suffering starts already. Then I can't do. My girlfriend and they talk normal for phone before. Suddenly, just everything. As I reach, everything change. Everything changed totally. I see one black guy come. Say for today, go to be my oga. And so oga for waiting. He say na money we take carry me can I get to pay. Now I said, but this will not be our agreement. He say I need to pay the money. He say in the night I get to dress up, go outside, go also the money. Now call and say all these things not be waiting me and you guys talk for I come up for Nigeria. Not be all these things you promised me. Why you want to maltreat me like this? I call say well. I know but nowhere to run to. No anybody when I know. I come and buy. In the night, I'll dress up, go outside, go look for men. Come ask. The day when I'll bring money, that day I will eat. The day I'll not bring money, I will stay hungry. Because they do one like that to see, come reach 3 months. Then the guy call me. Say, no. My paper that day expire. I want to go back to Nigeria. I said, I don't feel go back, I don't get 15 naira, I don't get any money. I want to go back to Nigeria. All my money when they make it, they give you now. I want to start if I reach Nigeria. I want to take off my 2 children when I leave for us. Then he got me say no, say I need to go back home. If police catch me on my own. I call the crack and say, God, which kind of life be this one? God, how if you take more for year now? God, which kind of life be this one? The other night, I come after I eat finish, I come see back I dress come out. So I just come out. Wait till I just say I see police, 3 of them. They say with my paper, and my paper already expired. I say, oh God, no get paper, no paper. They say my brother say, oh God, no get paper. Wait till I do the point call for my hand. I see myself for prison, for station. So I reach there. They say no, I say, may I bring my paper? I call the guy. Oh God, how far? Police already catch me. He say, as police don't catch me now. Me I not get anything business for today. From now on, may I do my own. May I not even try and call you number again. And then I can't cut the call. I can't declare. I say, God, which kind of life be this one? God, I need your help. God, I need your help. God, I need your help. And then the CID man comes here. Where my paper? I not see my paper. I say, okay. They need to deport me. Now I say no wahala. So far I reach my country safe. They say no, I need to stay for prison for 3 months. I say 3 months for prison. I say what? They say I need to stay for prison for 3 months. Now I can say because when they catch me along the road. Because why I define man that night. And second, my paper already expire. Because I need to serve, need to stay for prison for 3 months. Can't stay for prison for 3 months without only 1 cloth when I wear. Now let that cloth I continue until the marriage in 3 months. And then I can say, God, I need freedom. God, I need your help. God, if you rescue me for a year, anywhere I go, I must serve you. After my 3 months they expire, they can carry me come and I say, okay, now I'll go buy my tickets. I need to come back to Nigeria, my ticket though. I don't get money for tickets. I'm going to say, okay, I don't get money for tickets. Any year now don't do me. I don't get money to buy tickets. Nothing. I don't get anybody to call. So say I buy tickets. In the morning, I just see CID woman just call. Say I come out. carry me go this thing, their office. He said, I said, don't buy ticket for me. I said, eh? Who buy ticket for me? He said, may I not ask question. He said, don't buy ticket for me. He said, but never book my ticket already. I said, Jesus, this one a miracle. I said, Jesus, thank you. Don't let me rot for you. I said, Jesus, thank you. Jesus, thank you. They now carry me back to prison again. I see in the evening of it, they say, Rita, come out. You are free to go. I say, God, is this miracle? God, is this miracle? I say, God, is this miracle? I started rejoicing. I started happy. I said, God, thank you, Jesus. I said, thank you, Jesus. I said, thank you, Jesus. And now put me inside vehicle, take me to airport. And I enter the plane. That enter plane finish. I said, God, who I know for Lagos when I go meet now? Plane can't drop. Who I know for Lagos? We have for start for Lagos. Who I want go meet for Lagos? Can't get one girl we stay beside me. Come and say, babe, how far? See my condition. I don't get where they go for Lagos. I bet you know anybody might feel follow you stay. The guy say, man, no worry, man. He get guests when they take care of. If we reach Lagos, he go take care of me. If we get where we'll go, they go polish me, they go give me fine clothes. I will live normal life. We'll go out, go the flex, they enjoy. After the girl they tell me all this, I consider say God. My mate can't come back say, now what till you promise God, make God do, what till you tell God say you won't do, now you won't do so. You come up for where shower, you won't see enter a shower again. And what till you talk say you won't do be this one. And my mate can say no. I tell God, say, God, if God release me from prison, the first place I fair go na church. When wants to go back to prostitution again? And my God say, no, not follow this girl. Not follow this girl. This girl won't follow, so not follow her. I can say, okay, if I don't follow this girl, who I can't follow? I can't sit down, I can't cry. Only me I can't cry. Can't come down for Kenya. As we come down for Kenya, let's come down for Kenya. We got to enter plane again. We won't come back to Nigeria. I can't sit down. One lady can't sit down near me.
My name is Ayodeji Lawrence, and I coordinate the Praying Hannah's ministry. So I went to Kenya to minister at a women's conference. That was in 2017 March, and on my way back, I got on the flight. I went with my friend. She's a bit, plumpier than I am. She was meant to sit in the middle of the three-seater. I said, sis, you are big. It's a bit on the big side. You sit by the aisle. Let me sit in the middle. So I sat in the middle, and it happened that Rita sat at the extreme end of the seat. And as I sat down, I just noticed she was heaving. I thought maybe it would just be one sigh, and that would be it. But it continued. And Anna looked at her. I said, I hope all is well. She said, no, all is not well. And I said, so tell me, what is it? She said she was not going to tell me. And I said, no, I'm going to hold on to the first thing that you said, that all is not well. I said, tell me exactly what is wrong with you. And that was how she started her whole story.
So see as I say, go Dubai. See how shower when I do. See as I stay for prison for 3 months. See as God set me free. Now I don't get where to go. See lady when they beside me for them, I don't follow and go. I go see start the same prostitution again. Let the lady come say no. As far as you tell God, say you won't go here, go serve her. I won't carry you go our church. I say, Mama, if they carry me go church, he say yes. I say, you just now church, they carry me they go. I say yes. See, it's gonna fall out of my head. He say no, don't cry. Say for now go, your suffering is finished. And I say okay. And I say okay. Are you sure? He say yes. He say don't cry again. Don't cry. I say, Mama, are you sure? He say yes. He said, for today go, you be my responsibility. And the man said, Mama, are you sure? He said, don't cry. Don't cry again. Just sleep. Don't cry. I said, Mama, I said, okay. He said, take this paper. Read it. Wipe away your problem. Just be reading it. I said, no. Mama, he said, don't worry. Sleep. Don't cry again. I said, just sleep. And I said, okay. I said, God, thank you. As far as this lady brings steady for me to help me, I say, God, thank you. I just say, God, thank you. God, thank you. Jesus, thank you. After all the other thing, our plane come down. This lady hold my hand, say, come follow me. I say, Mama, say they will help me. Immigration people will help me. I don't have passport. He say, don't worry. I say, for now, God will take care of you. I say, Mama, He said, don't worry, follow me. Let's go.
And for me, there were a few things that struck me in the whole process. Because normally when you're deported, there's always someone that stays with you, maybe a custom officer or something, or maybe someone who is in charge of the law or something. But in our own case, she was the only one. And she was even allowed to sit with the other passengers, because normally I think they sit at the back, of the cabin. And for me, that was really, really a strange setting. So that was how we got talking. She was crying. I told her not to cry, just pacifying her and all. In the process, I led her to Christ, because that's one of the things I believe as a child of God. You should be able to let other people know what you are enjoying. So she gave her heart to Christ in the process. I was like, Lord, what do I do? I can't leave her this way. And the Love Home came to mind. I put a call through, but unfortunately they said because I'm an individual, I'm not coming from an organization, they won't be able to take her up. And I said, okay, what else can I do? And I called church. And church, I spoke with Pastor Emmanuel.
Mrs. Ayo Lawrence, the head or founder of the Praying Hannah's ministry, approached me on a particular day, and she said she had a case in her hands and she wanted me to get involved and help out. And then she told me of an encounter with Rita on her flight coming from Kenya. And I felt, wow, this is interesting. In my mind, I was thinking, okay, you met this person for the first time. You don't even know her background, and you bring her up here. So what do you want us to do? However, because of what the Elevation Church stands for, one of our core values is, love, and we just believe that, okay, this is someone that is out there lost, that is looking for love, but actually looking for love in the wrong places, looking for fulfillment in the wrong places, seeking purpose, but seeking purpose in the wrong places.
She now had to go home with Pastor Tim. She slept over at Pastor Tim's house for the 2 nights she was in Lagos.
My name is Timothy Aderemi. I work with the Elevation Church. At the time of meeting Rita, I was assisting the pastor in charge of membership. So Sister Yo called, just shared with me. So that we're torn between, okay, we don't even know. We don't know her. One of the things that we preach in our church is that the Elevation Church is not only a church that people attend, but there's a family that people belong to. And so I have a small 3-bedroom at home, very small. and then, just because of my heart for sometimes I question, why God, why did you give me this soft heart, for people? Maybe because I've also been through stuff in my life, and I felt one way to do this is to give back, give a helping hand. And so that day I put a call through to my wife. I said, there's this young lady in church, introduced to me by our own friend, Sister Yo Lawrence. I said, it's Sister Yo. So beyond the fact that she's coming into an Elevation Church family, whatever Sister Yo is involved in, I would also gladly, get myself really involved. And a call to my wife, she also believed in her husband, so she said, okay, why not? Let her come in.
My name is John Ayuba, and I am from Borno State.
In the night, I'll dress up, go outside, go look for men.
I was afraid. Let me just be open. I was really, really afraid to bring Rita in.
The story continues as we rejoin Rita's story of redemption on One in a Million.
In life, we have, it's like a football match. Yeah, you have first half, you have second half, and you have halftime. Her meeting Sister Yo was just that halftime moment for her.
My name is John Ayuba, and I am from Borno State.
In the night, I'll dress up, go outside, go look for men.
I was afraid. Let me just be open. I was really, really afraid to bring Rita in.
I remember that day, it was, maybe we finished the office around maybe 11 or so. I put her in the car, and as we're going, a lot of thoughts were just flowing through her. What if she just stopped breathing in the car? I mean, I like to think, you know, wide and all of that. And thankfully, she didn't stop breathing. She came in because she was looking very, you know, tired after the experience. So I took her home, got home. I said, babe, this is the lady I was talking about. And my wife gladly, and then I just left both of them because I was also very tired. And around maybe 2 a.m. or so, I came out. I saw both of them gisting. I don't know what they were talking about, but I know my wife kept encouraging her. This is not the end of your life. God has, you know, started quoting scripture. I think they prayed a little, you know, and then I came into the room. I remember just one thing that I said to her. I said, the best of God for you is never in the past, but in the future. And so I brought her back to the office. I didn't remember us taking selfies with her, you know, maybe it wasn't the day of selfie. And then I handed over to Sister Yo Lawrence, and I was happy that at least we're part of a, you know, journey in this period of time.
But along the line, we put a call. We found out that she was married, you know, with 2 children, which was really very strange. I was like, how come, you know? So we called the husband there and then.
And I said, look, do you know where your wife is? And he told me the story, how they've been struggling with finances and this and that, and how his wife was deceived by a friend, traveled out. He doesn't even know where she traveled to, you know, and on and on. And I told her, okay, you know what, your wife is with us, she's in Lagos. I was like, oh, interesting, what happened? So I was able to give him a bit of the story as I was told by Mrs. Ario. And then he said, fine, that's okay. You know, after talking to him and counseling him about forgiveness, about restoration, about taking his family back and everything, it's like, fine, that pastor, I'm ready, I'm okay. I'll take her back, it doesn't matter. I mean, she did what she did out of ignorance, you know. I'm willing to forgive her and let her in.
Mama calls okay, for now go accept me. And then I can start. Come says, Mama, I don't feel sit down for it, because I not worry. You go find money for him, I take trade. Which kind of business I won't do? May I tell her, you go do business for me. I say, eh? I can't tell Mama. Mama say, is this kind of person for life again? This kind of person, they exist for life. I say, Mommy, I don't know. For that, because which business I will start? I was okay. I they do it. As I be do it where? I they do hair. And because okay, either I go open salon. I say yes, I go open salon. You say, are you sure? I say yes, I go open salon. Because how much I feel you to open the salon? Can retailer say, see how much I go, see how much I use. You never even reach 2 days. I say a lot. Say Daddy send me the money. I say, eh? It's not a miracle. God, this is not a miracle. I want to become mother of my own. And then I come through, I come open store. And then I did now take the manage my business now. So God be the glory. I can't even get guests when they learn work from my hand. I get 2 guests when they learn work. When they come, they will say, Madam, may I do this one? Madam, may I do this one? I just thank God for everything, for what God has done in my life. For what God has bring this woman to come and do in my life. And since then, I met this woman. My life changed. Anytime they go wrong, you must tell me, say, this one is wrong. Make sure say you do this one. I just thank God for making me. I just thank God for making him to make me to know this lady. I just thank God. Say, God, thank you. Thank you. Thank you. And I want to thank him too. I want to thank him. He's a big help to me, very big one. If it's not him today, maybe I don't know how my life will turn to. I don't know. I don't really know. I just thank him. I just thank him. I thank him very, very much.
Thank you, man.
Yeah, Rita's story is pathetic. You know, it still boils down to what we have been talking about, and then the environment, what the environment can lead people to. Rita, for God's sake, is a victim. She has not committed any offense. Somebody took advantage of her because she needed to survive her, and trafficked her, smuggled her to another country. So at the end of the day, she found herself in a terrible situation. So I think the message from Rita, first of all, is also an eye-opener to the youths, and to the young girls there, that all that glitters is not good out there. A lot of stories are going up and down. A lot of them are frustrated, they're under pressure, they want to get things done the faster way. That is what the in thing now. As we are talking now, the idea of going through Libya has come down. What is reigning now is going through Dubai, Saudi Arabia, Qatar, Oman, with visa. They will give you tourist visa. They will give you 3 months visa. By the time you land there, they confiscate your visa, you start working as a slave. But also to our government, let them try and encourage a kind of a healthy bilateral relationship between countries, so that if our citizens fall victims of some of these things, there will be a better way of handling them. And to other people, they should learn not to put their destiny in other people's hands. Traffickers and smugglers are destiny killers.
And basically for me, this story is about touching lives. It's about influence. It's about not being concerned about you, yourself, and I alone. It's about reaching out to somebody else out there. We always say it is cold out there. You can be the warmth that somebody is looking for. That's why the scripture says you are the light of the world. You are a city set upon a hill that cannot be hid.
Okay, so talking about Rita's story, one thing that really struck me was the fact that I just believe that God really is still interested in her life, her future, her marriage, because from the little I knew about her story, where she traveled to, the fact that God could still speak to the husband, because I don't think it was anybody. I'm married, so if I get to, God forbid, my wife engage in such thing, I would forgive, but it takes God to speak to a man's heart to know some of the likely things that your wife had done, and then with everything she came back to you, and you still take her. It takes God. So I saw God's work in all of this, and I also saw new beginning.
Yes, when we're still thinking, how do I handle her? Love Home wasn't coming through at that point in time. But I couldn't really, say I want to bring her in. I don't really know her. I'm just meeting her and considering her story. It wasn't something I was afraid. Let me just be open. I was really afraid to bring Rita in at that point in time. So it wasn't something that came, naturally to have her in the house. At the point wherein she told me her story on the plane, because by the time she told me how, what she went through in Dubai and how she got on the plane, and I began to say that I wasn't supposed to even sit here in the first place. Why did I tell my friend to swap with me? It was actually from the plane that I knew God was up to something. We didn't even have enough money for me to go for the conference. And I had to ask the board of trustees, can I go on this trip? Can I take out of this money to go on this trip? And they said, yes, it's ministry you're doing. You're not going, to enjoy yourself. You're going for ministry. So by all means, take out of the money from the account and go on that trip. And for me, with hindsight now, I believe I went on that trip for Rita. One of the things I've learned is we should be open and allow God to interject our plans. I'll say my kind of person, naturally, I would have said, oh, you know, I don't want wahala. Let her be, let me be. Or as humans, we would have said, oh, this person I don't know, you know. But I've learned from this whole process that when you are available, God will always find you and use you. 2017 August, I traveled to Benin. She didn't know I was coming. I just put a call through to her in the morning. Rita, how are you doing? I hope business is going on. I hope you're doing well. She said, yes, okay. I said, okay. I hope you're going to the shop today. She said, yeah, she's going to the shop. And she's just trying to put a few things together in the morning. She didn't know I was already at the airport. So by midday, I just showed up at her stall, and you know, she was all over shouting and all. And that was how I went to meet her mother-in-law, saw the children, you know. Unfortunately, I didn't meet her husband because her husband wasn't in town at that point in time. Okay, seeing her with the children made me to know that family is key. No matter how you have strayed, no matter how you have gone away, we can't take that, we can't take out the family unit. If there is love, people will always take you back. And that was what I saw, you know, with the children, with her mother-in-law, and even the few times I spoke with her husband on the phone, I could see that, you know, they were able to continue from where she left off before she left the house.
My name is John Ayuba, and I am from Borno State.
In the night, I'll dress up, go outside, go look for men.
I was afraid. Let me just be open. I was really, really afraid to bring Rita in.
It's been 8 years of violence, 2011 to 2019.
Why some are still sleeping, some have gone to have their bath.
I think what got my attention to get you invited to have this discussion was to see a police officer, encouraging people to get involved in the EndSARS protest.
Because I don't believe there's someone in the Nigerian police right now who's competent. Being a police officer is not just a job, it's a way of life. You got to be entrenched in it in order to do a good job. You can't get into the police force in Nigeria unless you know a chief or you know a House of Rep member. If you don't have that, you got to bribe somebody. Before I got hired as a police officer, the recruiting officer, they go by my neighbors. They go to people, schools. I ask, what is his character? The police system in Nigeria, from colonial era, nobody have done anything to improve on it. Although I believe that ending SARS was no solution to the police problem in Nigeria, but I believe that was the beginning of it.
Premiering this Friday, 3 p.m. and 9 p.m.
Many thanks for joining us on News on the Hour on Plus TV Africa.
State government has approved a bill for the establishment of State Security Network Agency, Amoteco.
We have the highest number of extremely poor people in the world.
He's not concerned about lecturers that are raping students that are under their care. He's concerned about them being stigmatized.
And I can tell you that he will get the result in full measure. He cannot avoid responsibility.
Why the focus on Africa at this point?
The news only cover, one side of Africa. So we always felt like the picture is incomplete. So we need the whole picture.
65% of these people, whom we term as the urban poor, live in settlements, otherwise known as slums.
This is just the tip of the iceberg of the road situations in Lagos, from the mainland to the island.
It's been a closed-door security meeting as the retreat for senior police officers hits day 3.
There's this basket or there's this bowl that we all come to the center to pick from. Everybody has to see Nigeria as an investment vehicle, not as a distributive mechanism.
Still on the foreign scenes, Russia has flatly denied allegations that is spreading disinformation about the new coronavirus outbreak on social media.
Australian Open debutant Coco Gauff defeated defending champion Naomi Osaka in 2 straight sets.
Kenneth Okonkwo Kanayo.
Hello and thank you for joining us on the news. I am Felicity Ezewike. We begin with the news that bandits have attacked the convoy of the Emir of Kaura Namoda, His Royal Highness Sanusi Mohammed Asha, killing 3 policemen and 5 others. The Zamfara State Commissioner of Police, Usman Nagogo, confirmed the incident that happened in Funtua, Katsina State, but declined to give further details. Plus TV Africa will keep an eye on the development and bring you updates. And Katsina State Governor Aminu Masari has praised and thanked security forces after they rescued 344 kidnapped schoolboys from the Kankara Government Science Secondary School. Masari spoke during a news conference.
I also use this opportunity to praise and thank the efforts made by the entire security apparatus of the state, of the country, for what they did, the professionalism that was shown and demonstrated during the efforts that culminated in the release of these 344 students of Kankara Government Science Secondary School.
The students have been taken to Gusau, where they were adequately taken care of. They slept through the night at Gusau, and today, glory be to the Almighty God, we are here with them to formally hand over the students to the state for subsequent handing over to their parents.
Still on the Kankara schoolboys, President Muhammadu Buhari has welcomed the release of the students of Government Science Secondary School in Katsina State, describing their safe return as a big relief to their families, the entire country and the international community.
This medal has been directed to empower 1,000 persons with disabilities in each state in the next 12 months.
When I start hearing the shoot of guns,
whatever I've done.
Every public policy has winners and losers, and some will not be very happy with you, while others, usually the silent majority, will be quite happy.
We apologize for the glitch earlier. Continue with the stories now. President Muhammadu Buhari plans to speak with the 344 students of Government Science Secondary School, Kankara, Katsina State after Jumat services Friday. The president had on Thursday night welcomed the release of the kidnapped students, describing their safe return as a big relief to their families, the entire country, and to the international community. He also expressed the nation's appreciation for the steps taken by all those involved to make their release possible. Away from that, the Minister of Communications and Digital Economy, Issa Pantami, has directed the Nigerian Communications Commission, NCC, and the National Identity Management Commission to remove the 20 naira fee imposed on subscribers for national identification numbers NIM retrieval requests. Pantami, in a statement signed by his spokesperson, Uwa Suleiman, on Friday in Abuja, said the directive is with immediate effect. The federal government had earlier directed that NIM be integrated with subscriber identification models for security purposes. The minister appreciated the efforts of all stakeholders and encouraged them to continue sacrificing more for national interest. The Minister of Communications and Digital Economy, Issa Pantami, has directed the Nigerian Communications Commission and the National Identity Management Commission to remove the 20 naira fee imposed on subscribers for the National Identification Number NIM retrieval services. We will take a short break, and when we come back, we'll have more stories for you. Do stay with us.
We can't talk about education reform if we don't decolonize our education system.
What we do not understand, we will stigmatize. Because it's just cultural. And I think it's just human nature.
They stop paying us salary. I don't like remembering it.
I am angry at Nigeria. I'm angry at this government which seems to be letting us down. I'm angry at us as a people.
In the process of struggling to free myself from his hand, he tore my pants and he raped me.
Yes, I commit offense truly.
Young girl, do you know where you are going? I say, I'm going to America. I say, oh. Now so that they talk, you are going to Libya. Which America?
As it then do mark our place, some people they die now.
This is Plus TV Africa. Big stories live here.
There was drama at the National Assembly as persons living with disabilities forced their way into the Assembly complex over the refusal of lawmakers to meet and engage them. The group from the Niger Delta promised to make life miserable for the senators if they continue to ignore them in order to refuse their request for Christmas packages. They say despite sending letters to the senators, which were duly received, they have continued to pretend that their demands were not important.
To this place, only to meet with them. We gave them a proposal for World Disability Day celebration and Christmas package, and we do a copy to all the Nigerian senators, which they recognize it, and they refuse to attend to us. We came here today telling them to show the meeting. All they do is to send their security men against us because they know we cannot do anything. Today, they must answer our proposal.
We've heard all you have said, and you have every right to say those things you have said. But what we want to urge you is to please note that, like you said earlier, violence will not solve problem. We have taken you seriously. Nobody is doing any scam on you. No scam. So remove that scam from your mind.
You see me here, when my leader was talking, I went out to make a call. You know who I called? I called the coordinator of Amnesty I also called the MD of NDDC when I went out now to tell them that I want to see them so that we can put our heads together and know how we are going to help people who are from the Niger Delta. But I can assure you, and take me seriously, that you will do your Christmas.
The State of Emergency GBV Group has once again called on the Nigerian Governors Forum to match words with action following its declaration of a state of emergency on sexual and gender-based violence across Nigerian states. The group, who made the call while lending its voice on the 16 days of activism to commemorate the International Day for the Elimination of Violence Against Women, advocated for the immediate domestication of actions to halt the scourge of sexual and gender-based violence, especially in states which are yet to take affirmative actions. Addressing a press conference in Abuja, the group explained that out of 21 target states, only 5 states, including Bauchi, Akwa Ibom, Abia, Delta and Kwara states, have passed the law.
We reminded the Nigerian Governors Forum to walk the talk and fulfill the commitment they made on 12th of June 2020 when they declared a state of emergency against sexual and gender-based violence. It is rather discouraging that since the Governors Forum gave this assurance, only 4 states out of the 21, Bauchi, Akwa Ibom, and very recently, Abia, Delta, and Kwara states have passed this law. It is important to note that the passage of this very important law in these 18 states will enable a nationally coordinated implementation strategy against GBV.
All the governors we're talking about are men in these states, and I can't understand why, as a country, we cannot protect the vulnerable and weak people. That does not even tell well as a country that we are not putting in place legal and regulatory framework backed by the needed funding. How would we live in a society where men would rape girls and women and go away with it? What kind of country is this? For us to enjoy peace and security, we must ensure justice.
As a movement, our demands remain establishment of sexual assault referral centers and well-equipped shelters in every state. These shelters should also be backed with a coordinated, sustainably funded support system. Only 17 states of 36 and the FCT have established these sexual assault referral centers.
We've lost too many lives to the evils of sexual and gender crimes. This must not be allowed to continue. Nigerians must hold their leaders to account and ensure that these laws are not just passed, but that perpetrators of sexual and gender-based violence are punished accordingly.
The sex offenders register is supposed to be updated by the correctional facilities, right? But we don't have the sex offenders register populated enough as it should be. Perhaps if we had those kind of things, and then we could come back to a system where we deployed, for instance, the polygraph services of the EFCC to ensure repeat testing after every 6 months for offenders of sexual and gender-based violence. Then we could checkmate, that's when they come out from prison, right? Then we could checkmate to what extent they have been of good behavior or they've not been of good behavior.
And in sports, Sri Lanka's cricket team made their way to South Africa on Friday, batting their way towards a 2-test series as part of the World Championships. Sri Lanka have named an expanded 22-man squad for their test series in South Africa and at home to England, although they will be without the experienced Angelo Matthews for the first of those through injury. And that's the news at this hour. For more news and updates, please follow us at Plus TV Africa on Facebook, Twitter and Instagram. You can also subscribe to our YouTube channel at Plus TV Africa. We will be back shortly with more stories making the headlines. Join us again. Thank you for your time.
This is it for upcoming artists to blow in Nigeria.
welcome to Plus Trending. I am Buki November, your host, saying thank you for joining us on today's episode.
Welcome back. It's tea time on Plus TV Africa.
Practice makes perfect. I'm not perfect yet, but I'm a lot better than I used to be.
He's a king. He's entitled to marry 100 if he wants to.
I think what got my attention to get you invited to have this discussion was to see a police officer, encouraging people to get involved in the EndSARS protest.
Because I don't believe there's someone in the Nigerian police right now who's competent. Being a police officer is not just a job, it's a way of life. You gotta be entrenched in it in order to do a good job. You can't get into the police force in Nigeria unless you know a chief or you know a House of Rep member. If you don't have that, you got to bribe somebody. Before I got hired as a police officer, the recruiting officer, they go by my neighbors. They go to people, schools. I ask, what is his character? The police system in Nigeria, from colonial era, nobody have done anything to improve on it. Although I believe that ending SARS was no solution to the police problem in Nigeria, but I believe that was the beginning of it.
Premiering this Friday, 3 p.m. and 9 p.m.
Nigeria sometimes is often misrepresented in the media. We get a lot of backlash when a small percentage of Nigerians commit crime or get into trouble. Here is an attempt to shine the light on some Nigerians in the diaspora making the motherland proud. Akinwumi Adesina, the 8th elected president of the African Development Bank. He was first elected to the position on May 28, 2015. He also secured a second term in the position. He is an economist and agricultural development expert with over 30 years' experience. He graduated with a bachelor's degree in agricultural economics from the University of Ile-Ife, now Obafemi Awolowo University, Nigeria. He also won the prestigious Rockefeller Foundation Social Science Fellowship in 1988, which launched him into his international career. As the Minister of Agriculture, he turned the agricultural sector around within 4 years. He is a prolific writer who has authored over 70 scholarly publications on policy, agricultural, and African development issues. Paulina Ibokwe, the first and black Nigerian woman to become the chairman of Universal Studio Group. Ibokwe was born in Nigeria in the 1960s and lived with her family in the village, which was affected by bomber planes during the Nigerian Civil War, and moved to the United States at the age of 6. She earned a Bachelor of Arts degree from Yale University and an MBA from Columbia University. Before her appointment, she was the head of the television arm of the company, a position no black woman has held before her. Ibokwe has also held the role of Executive Vice President, Drama Development, where she was involved in television shows such as Dexter, Masters of Sex, Nurse Jackie, State of the Union, The Underground, Soul Food, and more. Kelechi Madu, also known as Casey, he is a Nigerian lawyer recently named Minister of Justice in Alberta, Canada. He is also the first black man to hold this position. He relocated to Canada with his wife in 2005. Before then, he had graduated from the University of Lagos with a law degree and had been called to the Nigerian bar. Before his recent appointment, he was a member of the Legislative Assembly of the province representing the district of Edmonton Southwest after winning the 2019 Alberta general election. Kikelomo Lawal, newly appointed Executive Vice President and Chief Legal Officer of the Canadian Imperial Bank of Commerce. The graduate of Harvard Law School was just recently the Chief Legal Officer, Ombudsman, and Corporate Secretary at Interact Corporation and has over 20 years of progressive leadership experience, including legal expertise as both a trial and transactional lawyer. Lawal is also a strong advocate for inclusion, speaking regularly on the importance of inclusion across multiple dimensions, including gender, race, ethnicity, and life experience. Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala was appointed Minister of Finance for the Federal Republic of Nigeria in July of the Year Award 2004, Euromoney Magazine 2005, Global Finance Minister of the Year, and more. In 2006, she was named by Forbes magazine as one of 100 most powerful women in the world. Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala is currently a candidate for the post of the Director General of the World Trade Organization. She has been endorsed by President Muhammadu Buhari. To these individuals and many more Nigerians breaking records, we say the motherland is proud of you.
Oftentimes when we see celebrities either on social media, television, or in person, we assume they have it all together, but we forget that they're also human. Well, here are some of the low points of some of your favorite celebrities.
Hey, what's up? What's going on? It's Dice Ills, aka Mr. Miyagi, and we're just gonna give a few words to every up-and-coming artist or every dream chaser out there trying to be successful. I started off with just a dream and an undying passion to become Dice. Back in the day, a lot of people told me it wouldn't happen. A lot of people told me my dreams were too big. But one thing that I never stopped doing is I never stopped believing, and I never stopped having passion. And that's what you need to do as well. And when you ever hit success, never forget where you're coming from, because that's the only way that you can stay grounded. So believe in yourself, stay prayerful, and be passionate. One love. Bless.
Truth is, I've always wanted to be an actor in a terrain where people thought, oh, you may not fit in, this may not be the thing for you. I've always been desirous of being an actor, and you know, one of my biggest people, mentors, or who I look up to, or the character I want to play, is even playing James Bond sometimes. But it's been a long journey for me. I didn't get here. Last year, 2019, I won Best Actor 2019 for Maya Awards, and I didn't get there all in one day. I've done a lot of things. I've worked in the bank. I worked in the bank for 9 years. I've done real estate. I've sold cars. I've sold lands. I've gone through the highs and lows. And you know, initially, when I told people that I was leaving, I've been doing acting all my life. But when I told people I was going to leave and go full stream and full line into acting, people told me, you know, don't go for this. I don't think that's what you should do. Maybe this is not for you. And it was a tough call to make. It was a tough decision to make, but I eventually decided that I was going to go for it. And I went from audition to audition to audition to audition to audition to audition till I got my first major job, and that led to my second, third, fourth, fifth. And I decided to go and upskill myself and go to film school, you know, in the US. And I came back and I got a fantastic opening, a cinema movie where I played leading man with Omotola Jolade called The Tribunal. So it's been a very, very long journey. But one thing I can say is that whatever path you choose in life, as long as your heart is there, stick with it.
18 years down the lane, I'm still doing my thing as a stand-up comedian and also a master of ceremony. I've been through the vicissitudes of life. It was not like this before. I remember those years when when I was still in Warri, when I would go from show to show, looking for a platform to express myself. Thank God for helps around me, but it wasn't easy. Because I had to convince people that, oh, hey, try me out, I'm funny and all that. I had to trek many times. Even when I moved to Lagos, oh God, I trekked all kinds of distance just to attend shows, just to maximize the opportunities I had. It wasn't funny. I had to squat with squatters. I lived with people that were living with people. It was that bad, but hey, all our stories now. I'm here, and I'm not where I want to be, but I'm not where I used to be. So don't give up on yourself. Don't give up on your dreams. As long as you believe you can do it, yeah, in spite of the pitfalls, the shortcomings, still move on. Stand up, dust yourself off the ground, and move on. All right? There are more to conquer than you have conquered.
There was once upon a time in my life when I was doing this MC work and all these things, hosting gigs, and I did an event. I won't say the name of the organization. But you know, when they say, oh, we'll give you honorarium, I'm like, oh, okay, great. And it's not a small organization. And when they finished, I got 25K. So I used the money with the love of God, fueled the car, and then kept the change to buy granules, sauce, and got the egg on the road. When it's your time, it's your time. Don't rush it, don't force it. What's yours is yours. What's meant to be yours will be yours. Nobody can take it away from you because you are you in yourself. Know your creator. And that way, you know that your creator did not create a joke. So therefore, just believe in yourself and your time will come. I love you guys. Thank you.
When I was younger, I had just lost my father. And it was at the time when, you know, we had that television that you open and close like cupboard. Okay, I know that a very high number of people may not understand this. And I came back. Our TV was not there, but our neighbor had bought a new kind of TV. It was colored, and all the kids in the neighborhood were sitting on the floor watching this TV. And then I came back from lesson, saw everyone sitting down there. It looked a bit different from us, and the pictures looked finer because it was colored. And I stood by the curtain, and this lady just pulled the curtains together and shut me out. I felt bad. But I was also a big-mouthed young child. So I went to her and I said, because of me, you pulled the curtains together, right? The next time you look at that your TV, you will see me there. It was a joke. I mean, like, okay, it wasn't a joke, but I didn't know how it was going to happen. But I just wanted to tell her that she had no right to shut me out. And I went to school and I got this, the principal came in and said, Commissioner Shakia is looking for you. You're going to open up ROS TV. And guess what? When she put on her TV at 4 p.m., 2 months after, I was a continuity announcer who opened up that station. So don't be afraid and don't worry about how anyone looks at you right now. Worry more about how you see you. Worry more about what you intend to do with you. Worry more about how convinced you are about anything that you want to do. It doesn't matter. People can close their windows, close their doors, tell you to get out, tell you to sit down, tell you to go to bed. It's okay. They are not God. He has a final say. But guess what? You have the final work. Because if you don't work and work towards it, God is just going to stand there waiting. It is what you give to him that he will enhance. I hope this does somebody some good. We're all stars, I tell you. When you look up, you see a lot of them. I'm sure you're up there and shining, okay? So please, put some glow to your own star. Love ya!
Africa on the Move in partnership with DW. On today's episode, we'll be focusing on agriculture. Africa's economy is inherently dependent on agriculture. More than 32% of the continent's gross domestic product comes from the sector. However, agricultural productivity still remains far from developed by world standards. Now, in Ghana, David, a young man, is trying to revamp agriculture by making it appeal to young people.
David Asara is on his way to Kwame Nkrumah University of Science and Technology in Kumasi. The second largest university in Ghana lies 200 kilometers northwest of the capital city, Accra. His organization, Agro Mindset, has established training units in tertiary institutions across Ghana.
But the bigger focus is to set up
Once a week, the entrepreneur teaches young Ghanaian university students agricultural entrepreneurship. He tries to make it clear that it's not about spending the money immediately, but about reinvesting it in new farming technology.
I think that agriculture ultimately is the best profession, and Agro Mindset has really helped me to realize this potential. And so, as it stands now, I am all for agriculture.
Despite the challenges, David has already won several awards for his work. Most young people aren't interested in agricultural production. They consider it a job for the poor.
It was a big opportunity to experiment and try on my own what I had learned in the traditional classroom and on the field during my internship days. So I got home and I didn't have money to buy a piece of land or the vast land that I wanted. So I rented somebody's abandoned structure. And it's about forming or having a competitive advantage over such gaps. I couldn't buy a land, didn't mean I couldn't do farming. So I rented. And based on the proceeds from the farm, I could buy a vast land and begin to do things my own way.
Every weekday early in the morning, the 27-year-old can usually be found on his poultry farm. For the last 3 years, he has been able to produce 6 million eggs. At present, 7 young employees are supporting him on the farm.
So currently we have a stock of about 6,000 and they are into food production right now.
As well as practical training, David offers logistical support to young people who want to start their own farms. The young entrepreneur is a great role model to them all. Since coming here, I have been inspired to work hard so I can become like him. Since the beginning of his entrepreneurship, more than 50 young people, both locals and students, have benefited from the training. Some of them are now his employees. Working here, I get money to take care of my family and buy food and clothes. Ghana still has to invest almost $1 billion per year to import food. But David Asara's long-term vision is to significantly modernise the agriculture sector in order to enhance food security in his country.
From Ghana, we head to Tanzania, where small-scale rice farmers are taught a little trick with eggs, salt and water to help their produce.
Matrida Kayega and her children are preparing their rice for market. Their last harvest was very successful and they're selling their surplus. We got more rice than before. Before I was getting 8 bags from 1 acre and now I can get 30 bags from an acre. Some 7,500 farmers formed a collective in the Kilombero region. Any rice they don't consume themselves or sell locally goes to the company Kilombero Plantation Limited, KBL. The company trained Richard Hanger, a local farmer, to show other farmers how they can improve their crops. Using an egg, salt and water, he explains how to choose and process seeds. The egg shows when the right level of saturation of the brine is reached. That's when you drop in the seeds. Only those sinking to the bottom should be sown. And that's not all. You dig small holes with a hoe. The holes should be about 25 centimetres apart. Then you put the fertiliser in the hole first, then the seed, and then you cover it with earth. Besides helping the farmers grow more rice, KPL also promises to buy up all of the surplus. But the company pays a lower price than markets in the area. Agronomist Victor Magnong has his doubts about the scheme. He says this kind of agreement still leaves a great deal of room for uncertainty.
Is it a model that can just be copied and pasted? I will say no. Is it a model that can be scaled out and replicated with adaptation? Yes. I would say yes. It is possible. But we need to learn from the mistake made in Kilombero so that we don't repeat them elsewhere.
He says one problem is that the farmers bear the risk if there's a poor harvest. That's a good deal for the company, but it argues that the farmers benefit from knowing that they'll find a buyer for the surplus, but not at a market price.
If the foreign companies will be dealing with that scheme, they will impose their condition. And the small-scale farmers, they will not benefit that much. This is where the government, at least at the beginning of those schemes, the government should come in because the government is powerful enough to bring policy instruments.
Batrida Kayega and her family still take some of their produce to the market instead of selling it to KPL. This way they earn more per sack of rice, and in both cases they save the cost of a middleman.
Still on rice, which is one of the most popular staple meal on the continent. Ever heard of the Jollof Rice War? But I digress. In Ivory Coast, rice farmers are working on increasing their produce to feed the country.
The harvest season takes 4 months in Katiola, north of Ivory Coast. The farmers here have always planted rice, and that was just enough to survive. But this will soon come to an end. With his company New Rice, Kone Nile Nanyong wants to make Ivorian rice competitive in the country. This starts with a farmer. He works with a village cooperative. Everyone talks about it, how to produce more, but you forget about the quality. The people here are used to producing for their own use, but what ends up in the market does not meet the needs of the customer. In the long run, he wants to introduce organic farming methods, but to start with, he is providing the farmers cheap loans for high-quality seeds. That, with the seeds, is good, especially if one has paid off his loan. In the end, you earn a little more money to cover your basic needs. Most important is the processing of rice. Often, rice from the Ivory Coast is littered with stones or sand. Kone processes the harvest in a nearby rice mill. With the help of a Chinese machine, the rice is shelled without it getting broken, from rice husks to rice flour. The cleaned grains are automatically sorted and packaged depending on the quality. In the end, the customer can choose among the different types ranging from fine rice, whole grains, or fragments. Customers are becoming more assertive. They want to get the quality for what they pay. People do not trust the unpackaged rice, which is sold in the market, because they do not know where it comes from. You need a brand and a distribution network. Then people will buy. Anyone who has tried the local rice will always come back to it. In the coastal metropole Abidjan, new rice products are packaged for the consumer. Kone neither studied agriculture nor food technology. All he knows is marketing, but he is convinced that with good agricultural products, Africa can make money. Since then, new rice is available in supermarket shelves and is also sold by street vendors. Our dream is that one day we can export our rice under the label Made in Côte d'Ivoire, and that's only possible with quality. The last cartons have just been packed. Till now, new rice can hardly serve the domestic demand. Until the next supply comes, they will have to wait. Soon, Kone Nile Nanyong wants to cooperate with a second village for more quality rice made in Ivory Coast.
We'll take a break and then we'll be right back.
It is engagement we need to have.
Those who suffer miscarriages are never taken into account.
Members of the National Assembly are also influence peddlers.
You are sitting on Nigerians' money.
From the Babin, I pay my rent. From the Babin, I send my children to school.
A consultative engagement.
No any tangible notification before they ban us.
It's one thing for people to be at your back and the heat of the moment,
and another thing for them to still be able to when push comes to shove.
I will do everything to take Lagos out of the national grid.
I say entrepreneurship is like faith. You know, faith is substance of things hoped for, an evidence of things not seen.
I honestly think I have what it takes to be successful. Not only being successful, but I believe that I have what it takes to build a very strong company, a brand that survives even when I have left.
Because my kids lives in Canada, they ask, what do you do in Africa? So they think Africa is, Lion King, it's a jungle. So they were amazed to say, what do you do in Africa, Dad? So I say computer. I say, no, computer with the lions?
So entrepreneurship is that you create these things in your mind, you can't touch them. They're just ideas in your mind, and you hope and believe that they'll become things.
Startup, for me, I understand, it's where you want to start up a business. You come up with a plan, an idea, maybe where you want to have your business and what you want to do.
So startup is like when you are starting your business or an idea that you have and you want to put it in practical way.
Startup is a businesses that are just being invented, or someone has just found an interest in a particular product and they want to introduce it into the market.
The quality of a good startup, one, is maybe you have an idea. You cannot just start up a business without an idea.
Definitely you have to address a particular need. You have identified your market and you've seen a niche, so you have to bring into your startup to fill that gap.
The startup phase is when you have dreamt of an idea to be able to solve a certain solution in the community. You bootstrap the process, and then you get to the point where you have a viable product or viable service that you're showing to people. Could be the first 3 to 4 years of your work, right, where people don't know you yet. But once you're making an impact in the lives of people, you're solving a specific problem. That, for me, it's just the beginning, it's a startup, right? And then, of course, you go to the point where you've done this for several years. You're seemingly successful, and therefore people are asking for your service, or you're bringing in new products.
Yeah, I'm good.
Now let me be serious. My name is Ronald Hakiza, and I am a co-founder at yugabus.com. I am 27 years of age, of course making 28 very soon, and I come from Kisoro. I'm single, I'm not yet married. I work at Yugabus, and Yugabus is an online bus ticketing company. So we offer travelers or anyone who is traveling by bus a web and mobile application to book any bus to travel anywhere across East Africa.
My name is Eunice Mainamburu, the CEO and founder of BSmart Insurance. BSmart is an online integrated insurance platform that enables customers to choose the right insurance for themselves. This is through comparing from multiple insurance companies.
My name is Chimenye Mavre, and I'm CEO of Algorithm. And we produce software, and which called Ishiga software. We are in an information era where when you know, you are more rich than someone who doesn't know. We produce software, and which called Ishiga software. Ishiga was created 10 years ago, starting in Canada I was working in a night shop where they was using a software. Then I was impressed how they do their reports easily, how my bosses, my managers can see everything without even being there. The problem pharmacists was facing before we came in is the administrative work, let's call it like that. In a pharmacy, they have to manage insurances prices. We have like 18 insurances. Everyone is dropping his prices. They have drugs. Drugs, they expire. They are not like other goods. And when it expired, you can't give to someone. Every pharmacy was isolated, every warehouses. So there was no way these people can see their data in one master data. So we created Ishiga Live, which was taking all this data. So all this headache, we try to resolve them inside our software, putting them in the cloud. So if you are anywhere, you can come and view your data. You can make one giant supermarket because you are inside, but to make a chain of pharmacies or supermarket, you need software to manage all the data, to know everything everywhere, every time, so you can control the finance, the stock, the inventory. So we are working with hotels and bars. So waiters use this tablet, and they can order in front of you. They can order your goods, what you want. Then it goes directly in the kitchen. Then they can start preparing it, or drinks. There is a mentality. So this is a challenge which we will be facing soon. It's the mentality of African business or governments, where they don't trust like African solutions, especially in software. Challenges faced was two. One was to find skilled people, and the second was to find big contract which can sustain our company. We trained 20 to 40 students from undergraduate. We give them the way how to code in industry. So from there we take 5 top. So this fixed the problem of skills. How I'm different is when I started the company, I used to do things myself. Now everything is not connected to me. The business has to run without me. Nothing is magic here. Everyone who arrives somewhere is working day and night. You sleep when you have to sleep. To do it outside funding, it's a family like spirit. You do with what you have. So you try using, like even Steve Jobs or this big, like Mark Zuckerberg, all started in garage. So all you need is really to find this garage and try to do this small stuff.
For money to come in, we had to allocate ourselves responsibilities. I was in charge of marketing. My colleague was in charge of growth and managing developers. So when we allocated each other responsibilities, then we moved to finding the resources to make sure this company works. Because when we are just starting, there's no profit being made. You get it? And then that is when someone walks up to me, and who could be my aunt, and says, you know what, I will support with some startup. You get it? Some little money. And then from there, everything else starts falling into place when the business has taken shape. You get it? Yeah. By taking shape, I mean when you can wake up one morning and be sure that at least even if I am not there, someone traveling to Nairobi, to Kisoro, to Kigali, to Juba will be able to still get served.
I would have started more leaner.
I think what got my attention to get you invited to have this discussion was to see a police officer, encouraging people to get involved in the EndSARS protest.
Because I don't believe there's someone in the Nigerian police right now who's competent. Being a police officer is not just a job, it's a way of life. You gotta be entrenched in it in order to do a good job. You can't get into the police force in Nigeria unless you know a chief or you know a House of Rep member. If you don't have that, you gotta bribe somebody. Before I got hired as a police officer, the recruiting officer, they go by my neighbors. They go to people, schools. I ask, what is his character? The police system in Nigeria, from colonial era, nobody have done anything to improve on it. Although I believe that ending SARS was no solution to the police problem in Nigeria, but I believe that was the beginning of it.
Premiering this Friday, 3 p.m. and 9 p.m. Welcome back. Now, in Guinea-Bissau, where cashew nut is processed for profit. Take a look.
It's one of the last days of the cashew harvest in Ingore, a region in the north of Guinea-Bissau. Mariama Antonio Bonzo inherited her cashew orchard. Local producers used to only process the nut, wasting most of the fruit. But with the help of a cooperative, they can now process all of the cashew. If we produce cashew juice, we sell it and we can earn some money. Since joining, I've earned money to pay for school. I have 3 children, and I have to pay for their schooling and for my own. By processing the nut as well as the so-called apple, the cooperative Buondena adds value to cashew, which is the main export of Guinea-Bissau. Antonio Pereira Batista, president of the Board of Administration for 6 years, also teaches local producers good practices about cashew planting. For us, there's been a change, because now we also use the so-called apple to produce juice and honey. We process the fibers to produce food for our children. And we also sell some of our products as cookies or cereal bars. Cashew products like juice, honey, cookies, or jam are sold in the Ingore region as well as in the capital Bissau. But the product most in demand is still the nut. Looking to increase profits, the Buondena Cooperative provides training and mechanisms to support producers. We're establishing a small savings and credits bank for our members. The interest rates will increase their income. We can also lend money to our members so that they can invest in other profitable businesses. Mariama Antonio Bonzo prefers to invest her profits in education. If I finish school, I want to continue studying to be a doctor. This year, for the first time, the cooperative has fixed the price of cashews in order to protect producers and to guarantee incomes.
Nigeria's locally made coffee was declared one of the best. You don't believe me? Take a look for yourself.
Freshly ground, brewed and served. This is the Kaldi Coffee Shop in Lagos. A group of visitors has come to taste various African coffees. And the surprise favorite turns out to be a local product.
I think I prefer the Nigerian one. It's very ground nutish.
I felt it when I took it. And the smell just going from my nose down to my lungs and the liquid down to the... It gave me, thrill.
Coffee beans made in Nigeria. Entrepreneur Nasra Ali's goal and passion. Her family originally comes from Somalia, but she grew up in Kenya, a coffee-producing country. When Nasra moved to Nigeria with her husband, she rarely saw coffee shops.
From a very young age, I've been very passionate about coffee. Besides drinking it, I've always been very curious. And one of the things that I noticed mostly was that I was not able to get fresh coffee. Having grown up with the fresh coffee completely accessible to me, it was something that I really missed dearly when I came to Nigeria.
For now, she imports most of her coffee beans. But long-term, she hopes to start up her own brand of Nigerian coffee. Nigeria's eastern region has the best conditions for growing coffee, as Nasra found out. But traveling there means a 3-hour flight, followed by a 10-hour drive. In Taraba State, Nasra's company wants to establish a farming cooperative and work with local growers. She says the farmers still have some learning to do in order to improve the quality of their coffee.
But it is not just the coffee you have now, it has to be good coffee. And to get the good coffee, we have to teach you, and you as the farmers have to be willing to do the work. You have to do the work. So it's not the same, you cannot be drying it outside, you cannot be intercropping, you cannot just leave your crop growing very long. No, you have to be a very serious coffee farmer.
When Nasra finds coffee beans that are up to her high standards, she takes them back to Lagos. It's an investment in the future, she says. Nigeria has a population of more than 180 million people. And as its middle class grows, the demand for coffee is expected to rise dramatically.
Right now, all the coffee that is in Nigeria is imported. And we are the first roastery that has been set up, and we're very proud of that. We have very strong machinery and partners, and we are working quite well.
However, her biggest challenge is long-term development. Nigeria doesn't have much of a coffee drinking culture. Even the good hotels only offer instant coffee. With training and seminars, Ali hopes to get Nigerians to appreciate their coffee.
And that's all for Africa on the Move this week. See you next week. Bye.